on the assembly and the huge effort to do that. So I just kind of wanted to recognize it and call it out. I did wonder if you could just talk about, I know there's 500,000 for the regional dispatch center design. Can you just talk about that? Because we're kind of trying to figure that out right now. Like, is that for actual design, or is it just kind of a, like, if you could just flesh out what that 500,000 would go for in this fiscal year?
I can, you
Yeah, either one
Go
of us.
ahead.
Yeah, so through the mayor to Ms. Nowers, I think I can't sit here and definitively tell you what the cost estimates for that would be. So we're going to ease into it. I think we're somewhat committed to this idea. I think it's about what we will probably end up in is about a 10,000 square foot facility. We've talked to the city of Wasilla pretty extensively. That building that they're in doesn't meet their current needs. So where we could be in 5 years could be challenging. And I think we're in the best position with the Station 5-2 build, which is funded out of the Central Matsu Fire Service area. So what the area-wide 500,000 does is provide some funding. So when we put an RFP out for design for Station 5-2, we can include an additive alternate to consider having, really essentially have a fire station built and then look at a second story that is dispatch, and try to figure out how do we use that, leverage that to keep costs down for a dispatch facility so that we're not building something new that's completely independent, and leverage the benefits of what the fire service area is already needing to construct. And so as we talked about that from a project management perspective for public works is, well, we have to identify some funding that's not fire service area to do that. And the project account for that project today is all fire service area funding. And so that's why you see the $500,000 appropriation is to bring some money into the project so we can increase the scope of the RFP for design.
Okay. Assemblyperson Bowles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I just want to say thank you. So for me, emergency services is kind of near and dear to me. You know that I was a combat medic in the Army, and I work healthcare. I'm a healthcare admin nerd now. What I've seen you do in the borough, just as a resident down Connecticut River Road over the last almost 20 years, is outstanding. I greatly appreciate it. I greatly appreciate you taking the time. You were the first person that reached out to me when I was elected and sat down with me and had a meeting. You are extremely thorough. In my opinion, protecting human life is one of the, if not the most important thing we can do as government employees, as government people, and as human beings. So the service that you provide is extremely important. You have my support. And I just want to say what you've done is outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Through the mayor, Senator Bowles. I appreciate that. I have the best staff. It's as simple as that. You've met the leadership team, and I do appreciate that, but it's the staff. So thank you.
Further questions or comments in the assembly?
Are they going to name one of the buildings a Barclay building?
Thank you, sir. I'll put that in there.
Assemblyperson Gamble, do you have any comments, or are you still with us? Yes, maybe not. So, okay.
Yes, ma'am, I am still with you. I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just can't see your head nod or your eyebrows lifted online, so I don't know. So thank you. We're sort of at a point of decision. The food is supposed to be here, if it's not here now. And our thought was that when food arrives, we'd go ahead and take about 15, 20 minutes. If you can eat in that time, fine. And if not, you can bring it back and eat here. And so we can continue to get through today. Go ahead, ma'am.
She's setting it up right now.
Okay. So I will ask the presenter, do you prefer to start for 5-10 minutes, or would you I mean, once you get into a role, you just want to roll and be done with it, or what do you want to do?
Thank you for the question, Mayor. I think I can have a pretty peppy pace. So I would like to take the challenge of trying to present in the 10 minutes before food is ready, if everyone's up for it. Okay. All right, I'm ready to roll.
All right,
Let's do
here
this.
we go. Go ahead.
Good morning, Assembly, and Madam Mayor and Manager Brown. I'm Jillian Morrissey, for the record, Community Development Department Director, and I'm excited to be in front of you, and I appreciate the opportunity to present my department's proposed budget and share our team's efforts in the vision of making the Mat-Su the best place to live, work, and play. So I'm going to take you through a few sections of this today. I'm going to talk about some of our accomplishments, but also our strategy for success. That's our improving our return on investment. I'm going to talk about our funding requests and then, of course, our future goals. But first, I want to start with some of our accomplishments. All of these accomplishments are emphasizing Assembly funding priorities. What you see before you is a schematic for the Jonesville Shooting Park, and this is particularly the shooting range area. So this was part of our phase 1 feasibility and design. We're going to continue to work on this, and I am excited to continue to provide updates to the Assembly about that area. We're also just days away from putting out for review to the public and to our stakeholders our government peak recreation area draft management plan. We've also funded through an Assembly appropriation and supported the Ski Talk bus road construction that actually went in this last fall. They used it throughout the winter for operations. It looks terrific, and it's upholding terrifically, especially during a difficult winter with off ice and glaciation. We also had 2 successful tax foreclosure online sales. We thank you again for that direction of going online. That has been hugely successful, and we will continue to keep that up and get those delinquent areas back on the tax roll. We also published our winter trail grooming map. This is an interactive map. This shows the trail partners that have received grant funding from the Mat-Su Borough. And you can see on that map where the trails have been groomed, how long ago they were groomed, and also trail reports. This is just one of those times I get to highlight the excellent private public partnership where you all helped fund for these nonprofits to be able to do this work, and we were grooming over 1,000 miles of trails with volunteer labor, and that's really exciting efforts. We have continued our strategic wildland fire fuel reduction at borough facilities in order to protect those assets. This was our inaugural year at the Big Lake Lions Recreation Center. We put ice in December, and we just cut ice out in March. Last weekend, we had over 1,000 wrestlers at that facility, taking advantage of an ice-free and enclosed arena. And we are excited to continue to explore more opportunities for operations at that recreational facility. We provided expanded services to 4 outdoor ice rinks. We have a covered ice rink in Talkeetna, also in Willow, and 2 uncovered ice rinks in Sutton and also Wasilla. And we are providing either equipment upgrades or other services in order to be able to push more programming out of the core area and provide services to these other districts. We've had a record number of swim lessons offered, and I can tell you the demand continues to grow. It never ends. And so we're exploring more opportunities to continue to provide the demand for those swim lessons. We had the highest revenue recorded at Matanuska River Campground. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. We also opened another high-quality recreational facility, the Sunshine Creek Campground, this last summer. This is an area that has a view of the Alaska Range and also a salmon stream right down from the camping sites, and that just opened last year. So I'm looking forward to seeing those revenues continue to rise. We've relocated 2 CXT vault toilets in order to resource areas that needed more restroom facilities. And they said you can't move those things, but we figured out we can, and we can actually save the borough some money in doing that. We upgraded the Pioneer Peak Trailhead to provide more capacity, and we also finished the construction of the Willow Community Center and Library Walking Oval. And that actually came directly from an Assembly amendment last year. I'll just pause to see if there's any questions on any of those. Okay, I think my pace we're keeping up. I haven't heard that food is ready yet, so I'm going to just keep going. So I wanted to talk about our strategies for success, and that's improving on our return for investment. So the document or the graphic that you see to the right of my slides here, that was actually published in our 2025 performance report. You all received this report at your strategic planning session, and page 15 is where I'm getting those graphics from. So I wanted to talk about the strategy of how we're improving our return on investment. So we're diversifying revenue through grants, sponsorships, advertising, donations, and strategic partnerships. So I'm going to put a pin on grants because I'm going to dive a little deeper into that later in my slides. But if you look to the right, I'm highlighting the Brett Ice Arena. And the reason why I'm doing that is because right now they are the gold standard for where we want to be with our indoor recreation facilities. Through the leadership of Adam Madsen, he has taken that aged ice arena. It is over 50 years old, and he is actually looking at getting very close to 100% cost recovery at that facility. So we're going to keep doing what we do there and keep improving on those areas, and we're going to see if we can one day, maybe even next year, we can talk about having 100% cost recovery at an indoor refrigerated ice arena here in the Mat-Su. Next, I want to talk about a 3% increase in user fees. So in December is when the rates and fees came to the Assembly. You approved a 3% increase for us. And so we are balancing that 3% increase in order to be able to provide affordable recreation for our families, but also look at cost recovery as our costs increase. So as you can see in the top, I highlighted the Wasilla Pool and the Palmer Pool. First, I just want to note that you see that there's a decrease at the Wasilla Pool. That's because we were closed for 3 months last year to do a major pipe and drainage repair at that facility. Again, both the pools are about 50 years old, so we need to keep up on those repairs so that we can keep those pools going. But the user fee increase, just so you understand what that looks like for our residents, open swim went up about $2. Hourly rental went up about $10. Swim lessons, $5. So it's about $70 for 8 swim lessons. These are still really family-friendly, affordable fees for our residents, but also just help keep up with the pace of increase of costs. We've also went online for our services, and we are realizing the benefits of this. It has significantly increased our use and our revenue. I've highlighted a few areas. To the right, on the top, you'll see Matanuska River Park and Campground. I told you that we've had our highest year ever last year. It was an 84% increase. 84%. So we are excited to keep growing that and keep doing more, and also bring you down to the lower one, which is the bottom in the middle, the Burrow Gym rentals. The Burrow Gym used to be the best kept secret in the Mat-Su to find a family-friendly rental where you can have a whole gym space for parties, for convenings, whatever it may be. And it used to be at any given time, maybe 1 or 2 parties that would rent it in a week. In any given day now, we can have 7 to 10 rentals in that Burrow Gym. So again, we're realizing that improvement on that return on our investment. So we're very excited that we're online now, because we are trying to meet people where they are, and where they are is on their phones. And that's how they can make those rentals. That's where they can get their PIN number in order to be able to get into our facility. Next, I want to talk about the GPRA Chalet. I am so excited about this. I could talk about it all day long up here. So what you see highlighted on that box there, that is the revenue that we experienced last year with the concessionaire in that facility. So I've run the numbers. If we just rent the GPRA Chalet 1 day of every week, we'll see an increase in revenues for next year. 1 day. So imagine what we can do with targeted marketing and other things in order to be able to realize the return on investment for that facility up there. And lastly, I've highlighted everything because I just want to say we are looking at targeted marketing to increase return visits, but also new visitors at all of these facilities. We have to let folks know the amazing programs and services that we have available for them. And so we're going to do that, leverage that through social media and through other mechanisms to make sure folks know that we have what's available. Actually, I'll pause. Does anybody have any questions about that?
The ones in the top 3 rows in those are the not that have a dollar sign. That's what is collected in the fees, correct? And then the ones that have just percentage and different stuff, those are the ones just usage go up or usage went
Attendance.
out, but there was no revenue captured from there. Is that correct?
Correct. Through the mayor to assembly member phone off. That is correct. But I will just highlight that we had $1.7 million in cost recovery last year, which is a 14% increase for community development department across our facilities. Okay. Oops. I said we were going to put a pin on grant proposals. I wanted to bring this before you this year. I have $7.2 million in grant proposals and to different foundations. And I wanted to highlight the one that we were not awarded because it's for a very particular reason. You can see on the top there, this is a brand new grant for the Mat-Su Borough. We have never gone after these funds before. We weren't successful, but I'm not deterred. We just need to learn a little bit more about what the Federal Highway Administration is looking for and how we can put a grant in that will be successful in the future. And I would point out that it's over $20 million of federal funds that are going to other communities like Fairbanks and the Kenai that are receiving the majority of these grants. I would like to find a way that we can tap into these dollars and make sure that they come into the Mat-Su. So the others we're just waiting to see. As you can see, we have been awarded one of them for the West Butte Trail rehabilitation, but we're just waiting to see if we'll be successful in those grant applications. But again, leveraging new revenues in order to help support the return on investment that this assembly and other assemblies have made.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Julian. I just want to say thank you for, I know it wasn't awarded, but I know you're going to continue to pursue this. The overwhelming responses I've gotten from fellow residents down Kinnick River Road is they are excited about this paved pathway going in from, Pioneer Peak. We call it Pioneer Peak. I know it's got an official name. Down to the Butte area and on down. A lot of recreation. It increases every year, and people just see this as an opportunity to get off the road and avoid getting hit by a car. And it's that trail. My understanding is it's now become a bucket list item for world travelers. It's actually my understanding is it's the highest hike from sea level to the top, and so people come here just to hike that spot. So I greatly appreciate this, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this happen whenever it does, even if it's 10 years from now. So thank you.
Through the mayor to Assembly Member Bowles, thank you for that. We'll keep trying. Okay, I'm keeping up with I'm beating the food. All right. So this is, Director Barkley talked about that. Finance does provide this slide for us. So what I wanted to share with you here is that you can see we actually do have a decrease for community development, specifically within the land management budget. And that is because of capital. There was about $1 million difference in the capital budget from last year until this year. And that $1 million makes up the Big Lake Lions Recreation Center purchase and also the Jonesville appropriation. Otherwise, we are flat FTE and flat operationally. I'll pause there too for any questions. Okay. This is my last slide. So.
Okay. Good girl. We'll let you be first in line for lunch.
What you have before you, we looked at, I pay very close attention to the strategic planning that you all do in March. And so we looked over that document, and we tried to make sure that our goals match what the Assembly is directing. So under economic growth and supporting development of Hatcher Pass and tourism opportunities, I just had to put it in again because I'm so excited. We're excited to operate the rentals at the GPRA Chalet beginning January 1 of 2027. Likewise, we will complete the trail survey for GPRA Ski Talk Traverse and hopefully prepare for summer 2027 construction. So again, increasing high quality recreational opportunities for not only our residents, but also visitors alike. We continue to improve and maintain public infrastructure. So some of the priorities that we have are rebuilding the West Butte trail structures. We've had a 400% increase in use of West Butte, and the stairs and other infrastructure that we have out there it's starting to fail, and so we need to make sure that we can keep up with it so that we can match the demand for that service. It is a perfect hike for so many people. It has some of the most epic views in the valley, and we want to make sure we continue to provide that opportunity. And then we're also looking at improving and modernizing Matanuska River Park and Campground utilities and infrastructure. The Assembly actually provided an appropriation last year for that, and we're looking for continued grant funding. As you can see, the potential, especially with last year's record number of visits, is that we have a long way to go there. We have a lot more growth that we can do there and a lot more opportunity. In the develop high quality services, we will continue to advance the development of the Jonesville public use area. Like I said, we'll keep you updated on that project. And then improving communications with our community. We are days away from launching the problem reporter has been expanded to trails, trailheads, and also other recreational facility. So if you're out on the trail and you see trees down, or you show up and there's a restroom facility that is not up to our standards, you can report that so that our operations staff can address those things and continue to make these facilities terrific for our visitors and for our residents. And with that, I will take any questions.
Person hours?
Not really a question, just thank you. Like, there's, in the live, work, and play, there's nothing that touches people like the ability to get out and play. And it's why we live here, and it all goes together. And I just can see it also helping us on the economic growth side, because it'll be why people continue to come here. On Pioneer Peak, that is one of the most gorgeous hikes in the valley. There's a lot of them. A lot of them are in District 1, actually. Butte, Minehead, when I come to think of it. Hatcher Pass. So, I mean, it just is amazing how much people get out and use those trails. If anything, we're going to struggle with managing that growth that comes with it. And I just really appreciate the efforts that have gone into this, and to try to do it in a fiscally responsible way and keep those fees down for parents too. I would love to actually have, when you have time, the swim lesson numbers, just to see the growth in that. Just appreciate that and be able to share that with the community. But thanks for all your efforts, and it's just a good news story in terms of what we're doing here in the Valley.
Oh, Assemblyperson Fauna?
If you on the this one doesn't have pages. Well, one of your first pages that has the accomplishments on 2026, and one of the things, there was a which one is this? The Ski Talk bus road construction, and I know it was scored very high when we had the list of the thing, and even Michael Bowles was willing to fund that right over this much, so I was even surprised. But the thought, I recently learned that one of our best performing elementary schools, Shaw Elementary, I think, took the kids there, and felt like a good partnership between the school, and I don't know why maybe more schools don't take advantage of that, but because it's in the middle of the week and things like that, I would want to see that, and maybe more what we have to offer to partnership with a school kids and a school district, so that they take advantage of that, because I think it does have a lot of benefit when you get kids involved and outside and to do this kind of things. I think they fall in love with potentially new sport, new activity, but it actually helps, I think, with engagement between the staff and the students too, so that they have something to look forward to. So I'd love to see us kind of push that and discuss that with the school district and administration, and what we can to offer to connect those pieces together, because I think there's a long-term benefit in that as well.
Okay. Yes, Assemblyperson Sumner?
Yeah, that's a good point, Mr. Farnoff. I think that maybe we could put some of the kids on those empty transit buses up to Ski Talk.
Further questions or comments? Okay, all right. Thank you very much, ma'am. So does the assembly wish to take a break for 15 or 20 minutes or less or more? Huh?
Everybody in the room's got to get up. So we got to.
Yeah, you got it.
20 minutes, good.
Pardon?
20 minutes, Spencer, would
20?
be what I
Okay.
would like.
So we will come back at 12:20. Thank you.
Not on.
Oh, I thought I pressed it. It's 12:22. Please, Assembly, come back. Thank you. Okay.
Are you doing well? They're talking. We've done it before.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the Assembly meeting back to order. And I'll let the record show that Assemblyperson Gamble is not online. So, Tom?
I want to say that Dee entered the room at 12:23.
Oh, yes, and Assemblyperson Dee McKee arrived at 12:23. Just go ahead and turn your mic on and go ahead, Mr. Adams.
Well, good afternoon, Manager, Mayor, and Members Assembly. So I quickly realized right before lunch that I listened to Jillian, and her polished enthusiasm, communication specialist, and then coming out of lunch, you're going to listen to an engineer. So I'll try not to put you to sleep. I also heard during lunch that we had folks that are interested in fire, folks interested in community development and parks. I didn't hear anybody say we're interested in roads. So I'll try to keep it short. Oh, there you go, Mr. Bonoff. All right. First exercise, make sure you know where the advance button is. You've all heard, this is a slide that finance provides, but it's an interesting slide from the perspective. It gives you a snapshot into, how our budgets have been developed and performed over the years. I think, again, it's being reinforced that, the manager and the department heads have all been working really hard to maintain so that there's no increases year over year from at least the past year. So I just point out a couple of things here. For Public Works perspective, we're 4 divisions. We're made up of pre-design engineering, project management, O&M, and solid waste. Of those 4 divisions, I'll say 2.5 are area-wide, PD&E, PM, and our facilities group of the O&M division. So we have service areas as well, as you well recognize. Some of those aren't seen up here. Solid waste is shown, it's an enterprise fund. So all of those costs are captured, their expenses are captured through revenues, through rates and fees or grants. They're not an area-wide revenue or expense. But we also have our RSAs, and we'll speak to those here shortly. And we have another service area in our one utility out in Talkeetna, the sewer and water utility. So just want to point that out as we speak to differentiating the cost between area-wide and non-area-wide. Mike mentioned earlier, there's 6 positions that have been reduced borough-wide. 3 of those came from Public Works. We did through attrition create vacancies or through consolidation of services in the community cleanup or just in pure vacancies, positions that we were unable to fill for a long period of time. So we just started second guessing the need to actually have that position. So we reduced 3 regular full-time positions across our department. Not only that, we also reduced in our O&M roadside a seasonal road crew. So that's not really reflected here in the reductions, but there is a savings in cost. When I put together my presentation, I really tried to take a peek at what, a document that we could look at, and really the strategic plan that the assembly and the manager put together in the February meeting kind of served as good guidance for focus areas to talk about and build a presentation on. So you'll see that's what I've done here. He did a good job summarizing earlier the fact that we're going to show you how we're managing our landfill rates and the operations, and speak to our road program, whether it be maintenance or capital. I hope some of you have taken advantage of actually going out to landfill and seen the significant amount of work that's been going on out there over the past couple of years. I often jest with Jeff Smith, our division manager. It's become more than just a hole in the ground where people stop by with a couple bags of garbage and then turn around and leave. It really become a municipal solid waste facility that's well managed. And a lot of that is evidenced in the capital projects we're doing, but those capital projects are not only improving operations, but they're extending the life of our cells so that we don't have to invest in new cells earlier than we might have to otherwise, which in the end saves us having to spend money sooner than later. So, a few of those projects are the new residential landfill campus, our compost program that was actually done with grant funds, hazardous waste facility. We're going to do a new admin building this next season. The cell 4 expansion project, the C&D cell expansion, and then the leachate evaporation. In FY25, we had about a 24% increase in volume received at the landfill. So I think that shows you, again, for the demand in services and the need to respond by not only improving our operations, but improving the capacity to receive that. And we're just focusing on the central landfill right now. This is not, not to forget that we have transfer sites across the borough as well.
Assemblyperson Bowles has a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, thank you, Tom. I do have, so I have been there and I've seen the improvements, and it's great. One question I have is your department looking into bringing in a tire separator during this process of improvements so that residents can bring in tires on rims? Because, I know for us in District 1, that is a bit of an issue where cleanups and, people want to bring these to the landfill, but they can't because tires are still on rims, and then, so they're stuck with them, and so they end up building up in people's yards. I'm just curious if that's been looked into, or if that's a possibility.
So, Mr. Bowles, no, I don't think we've actually looked into bringing a tire separator. As you're aware, we receive tires, but they have conditions upon which we take receipt. And if you go out there, the piles of tires continue to accumulate. And I know Jeff and his crew recognize that. A shredder, we have a shredder now. That seems to be a piece of equipment that's susceptible to running and then not running, and then running and not running, just because, the nature of the beast that, shredding tires with radial tires. So, but that's something I just wrote down a note. We'll take a peek at what that might mean for us, going into the future. It's not anything in our capital requests at this moment.
Thank you.
Assemblyperson McKee, go ahead.
Yeah, just speaking of the tires, do we sell it? Could that be do you sell them? Have you ever sold them, to people for mulching and all that kind of stuff? Or do we just put them in the ground?
Assemblymember McKee, I'm not aware that we actually sell the tires. We have a reuse program, but most of the tires that come into us probably don't have a second life. There's a reason they're at the landfill. I think that's what you're asking, is whether the tires themselves or the shredded tires.
Shredded tires, like for mulching around trees and stuff.
We don't have a formal program right now to resell that, or necessarily anybody that's come to us to ask for that. I know Jeff and myself have had meetings about various entities that look for waste to energy, and tires are part of that conversation. but none of that's actually formalized into an agreement to take advantage of that right now.
Is there any market out there for that? Do you think there used to be? Maybe it's just because people don't.
Again, there's real, I mean, there's a suggestion there's a market, either in the waste energy, or some other place, but, you know, nobody's really approached us to, you know, take advantage of that.
Interesting. Thanks.
Assemblyperson Sumner.
Oh, I was just going to say, I did take a tour of the central landfill, and there was a question I had for, can't remember who's in charge down there.
Jeff Smith.
Yes, Jeff. And apparently, to answer your question, apparently the shredder that we have does not shred it to a fine enough product to be of commercial value, but they do use it to like line their leachate pipes and stuff like that, and get more life out of those C&D pits somehow by restraining the sidewalls for steeper slopes. So they are actually using what they're shredding. It's not just going back into the ground. They're able to reduce the tires and create more space.
Okay, go ahead, sir. Thank you.
You know, the new landfill campus, as you can see a picture here, the tipping floor, you know, the entrance improvements were completed in the past year. And as you're familiar, you know, formerly we had lines of traffic that might back up all the way out into Palmer-Wasilla Highway. So the new entrance improvements itself are going to help alleviate that safety concern. We got a new tipping floor that goes along with it. So along with the landfill entrance and the tipping floor, which should come online in about early June. So, you know, you can see here, it's a 20-acre campus. You know, we're going to have a lot of new options that go along with this. Our compost area is being developed right now as well. You know, it gives us an opportunity to separate the materials, divert some of that out of the landfill, and then, you know, keep some of that airspace available to us for actual municipal solid waste. The glass pulverizer, that was something that was purchased with capital funds that you guys approved here in the past few years. Again, we've diverted just in the past few months over 80,000 pounds of glass. And Jeff's gotten really creative, to your point, Ms. McKee, here, trying to find reuse for that. He's been engaged with some local golf courses to see if they might use it to put it in their sand traps. So it's getting a little creative to take some of that material and do that. So we'll see if that takes off or not. But just the fact that we're taking those bottles and glass and jars, whatever they might be, and taking them out of the landfill and trying to put some value to it. Our compost program, it's a 3-acre grant area. It's fully designed and ready for construction. It'll process the woody debris that comes into our facilities, and it'll help promote some of the compost and you know, be available for the community needs. Here again, this is a little bit of talk about some of the operational improvements that are going on at the landfill. You know, again, Jeff's crew's doing a really great job of planning infrastructure that takes a peek at current situations as well as into the future. We work with VCRS to divert recyclable materials from landfill, you know, preserve valuable line cell airspace. In 2025, 6,000 tons were diverted from the landfill, saving $630,000 in airspace. The leachate, you know, everybody understands what leachate is. It's a water that percolates through our waste mass that's collected, diverted. It was through lagoons, and lagoons, we would collect it in the lagoons previously and then have to transport it to Anchorage for disposal. That was about 4 or 5 million gallons a year at about 14 cents per gallon. So in that order of $half to $3/4 millions a year just to transport and dispose of that in Anchorage. With the new evaporator that we have on site, some of you were at the ribbon cutting here early this year, late last fall. That's been in place now. We can evaporate up to 20,000 gallons per day, and that's costing us about 6 cents per gallon. So already we're seeing benefit there. We're generating about $270,000 in annual savings. And that's just in the haul cost. That's not projecting the future savings and reducing the need for labor and equipment. You'll see also on here, cell 4 expansion, that picture there. That's our current municipal solid waste disposal cell. In the past couple of years, we've expanded the cell 4 under prior operations. The way that cell 4 was used, made it a little bit inefficient, and left some area behind. Well, Jeff's crew found a way to get back in there, expand cell 4. There's a couple benefits that come out of there. You know, it'll give us about 4 additional years of landfill capacity, and then also extend the use of the crevasse moraine trailhead in there. And some of you are aware there's always an ongoing conflict about the trail and, you know, the use of the landfill. So while we recognize that, we also recognize that area is dedicated to the solid waste.
Ask another question. At some point, thank you. At some point when the cell is full and you pave it over and all, or, you know, put gravel over, whatever it is you do, then what happens to that? Then can you like plant trees on it and make a subdivision? I mean, what do you do? I mean.
So remember, Key, I mean, there is a closure process, and that work, you'll see in my discussion here shortly. I mean, we got a couple cells that will need to be officially closed here. But once they're closed and covered, yeah, there could be some uses. I mean, we haven't defined what those look like right now. I mean, I know in some other jurisdictions, they turn them into soccer fields and, you know, recreational facilities. There are limits to what you can do to reclaim that area, you know, because certainly even though they may be covered, they're still working, right? You know, the consolidation of materials underneath and the leachate is still something we have to deal with even after post-closure. I just want to make mention, we have a C&D cell that also has been expanded. You know, we've been doing that through extraction of gravel from those areas. We've taken advantage of using that gravel for our, you know, developing our sand and traction materials for our RSAs. The contract model for that will alleviate our need to do that going forward, but we've been taking advantage of those over the past few years. We also have a royalty that we collect from a contractor that has an agreement with the Matsu Borough. So any kind of materials they remove from the landfill, they pay us a small royalty for. But the net benefit of that is, you know, we've got extraction and extraction materials and expansion of the construction and demolition debris cell, C&D, that will expand that cell by about 50 years. So it's fairly significant. You know, we've done that for very little cost. You know, from a financial perspective, the operational improvements are producing measurable recurring results, and investing in system efficiency and infrastructure, we have avoided landfill rate increases for the 3rd consecutive year. I think that's the important part right there, is we're holding rates constant. We're not having to increase them year over year. And you know, there's a potential that we could actually see a reduction in rates if we continue to see the operational efficiencies and the improvements in the capital investments. Looking ahead a little bit, I make mention of a household hazardous waste facility that we're looking to do. The new facility will increase the collection capacity and improve the customer access. You know, so that is going to be under design this year, and then probably look forward to having that in construction next summer. We are going to install 12 to 15 new gas collection wells. You know, these are important from the perspective that you know, gas is created through our waste mass, and so collecting that, we actually use that waste as energy to power our evaporator. So we're reducing that, so it's not just off-gassed into the environment, and it's actually used to generate the power for the evaporator. And the efficiency that we have gained in the current gas collection system actually allowed us to burn more. Initially designed with the thought that we had about 10,000 gallons per day. When we did the improvements to the gas system, gas collection system, it actually increased our ability to burn about 20,000 gallons a day. So you can just see there's a lot of science that's going into making that operation more efficient. You made mention of closures, so we're looking to have to close cells 2B and 3 in the next couple of years, probably 2029-ish in that time frame. And then the big cost that we all need to plan for is the design and construction of cell 5. And as I mentioned, the expansion of cell 4 extends the life of that cell by several years, but sooner or later that one will also fill up, and we're going to need to be, you know, have another cell. And the cost of developing a new cell is fairly significant. So we're looking at that cost to be, you know, coming due in about 2032 or 2033. I'm gonna pause there because that's the landfill side of things. We're gonna move into my passion. They're all my passion. Jeff does a much better job at explaining the science behind landfills, but we good to go? Move on to roads. All right, so I'm gonna read a little bit off of this, only in that you look at the bar scale here. We've tried to present some information that just really shows the problems that we've had over the past couple of years, that we're still seeing right now, and we probably need to address going into next year and beyond. So many of you are aware, look at that scale, and that's the total expenditures for across all RSAs. You can see, the blue, the actual operation, the wages, salaries, benefits, things like that have been fairly consistent throughout that time period. The green is our maintenance contracts. And we've had a significant jump in between the 24 and 25 years. In many cases, we saw contracts double, close to triple. And, the challenge of that is when you don't bring in more revenue, then the cost of our maintenance contracts is impacting our ability to have a capital program. So that's the orange bars across the top there. And pretty obviously you can see we had a fairly significant impact in transitioning in between 25, 26 in a capital program. We've rebounded a little bit in our proposed budget for 27, and I'll speak to that in a minute. But that doesn't mean we're out of the woods. We really need to figure out what our strategy for a capital funding program going forward. Along the bottom of the bars there, you see bullets that just put in numbers. The fact that, the increases in the miles generally, it doesn't look like a lot that we've only increased 75 miles in that time frame. But, 75 miles is 75 miles when you're talking about spending $10,000 per mile plus for maintenance. Our maintenance contracts, you can see, have doubled from $8 million back in FY22 to $17 million currently. And then again, because of the revenues hasn't significantly changed, that means we've gone from somewhere in a $10 to $14 million capital program in that time frame to right now being about $7.5 million. We did rebid 7 contracts this past spring. Those contracts were the ones that were initially let in FY25. So the manager made mention earlier that we had a reduction of about 20%. I want to be careful. That 20% is only for those 7 contracts when you do that comparison. So it's significant still because it shows a trend in prices going down. We have seen that not only from those that were bid in FY25 coming down now, but also those that were bid last spring were lower than the year before. And you can see that in the green spreadsheet there, if you will, insert engineer, all RSAs. So the comparison from FY24, we were paying about $7,000 per mile. Up to now, this averaging the more recent bids that we received were about $10,400, which is less than we were receiving on average for FY25 and 26. So, there's a lot of reasons that I think we can explain why we are getting a little bit of rebound. We had a new contract that we did in FY25 that affected FY25. We had a big storm issue or snow issue that we dealt with as far as how we deal with snow and rights of way, private snow and rights of way. And so there's been a little bit of that. I think there's a rebound in prices because contractors are now seeing that the new contract, how it can benefit not only the borough, but also them as contractors.
Assemblyperson Bowles has a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So with this, and this might just be ignorance on my part as the new assembly member, and so is there as far as these contracts, I've spoken with other assembly members and a couple of people associated with RSA boards, and my understanding is, generally speaking, a mile is about 8,500 to 10,500 or so. That's what it was or what it used to be. And there might be some companies that have coordinated an effort to increase that or double that to try to bring in more revenue, understandably, right? Capitalism. Has the borough, is there a capability of setting a cap on contracts to keep the price down to the taxpayer? Is that something that's been explored? Would that inhibit getting contracts? Or is this just something that's out in left field that I'm thinking?
Mr. Bowles, I don't know that we haven't necessarily talked about technically setting a cap, like putting a number and saying we're not going to receive bids higher than this. But I think in practice, we have done that. We have received bids that were far in excess of what we consider to be reasonable, low bids, and decided we weren't going to award on that basis. And then therefore canceled that bid and rebid in the desire to get lower bids, and in fact did get lower bids.
Okay, so essentially the process kind of corrects itself. So if it seems like something's coming in and out at $16,000 a mile, then it takes care of itself. It comes to us on the assembly, we say absolutely no way, and then it goes back to you. So we don't necessarily need to consider looking at bringing a cap in. We just need to identify that and maybe be a little bit more prudent if that is something that starts to occur.
As I said, as far as the bid goes, that has been something that has put in practice. And previously, there has been, bids that come in that were unreasonable. It might have been a single bidder, or it might have been a low bidder, and then, administration and purchasing officer have brought that bidder in and negotiated a lower price, something that's more reasonable to actually, or consistent with our thoughts of what that cost should be.
Can I ask a question?
Assemblyperson McKee?
Yeah. When you go from 24 to 25, and the difference in the numbers there, obviously nobody expected what happened in 25. But why, now looking at what we just went through, which was there's no snow on the ground, why are we predicting that it's going to be 11,344 in FY26? And then it goes back down. Obviously, if we're getting further out in the future, it goes back down to less than where it was in 25. How do you do that?
As I remember, Key, actually, those are actual numbers. So those are averages of all RSAs on a per mile basis for FY24, FY25, FY26. And we received bids early enough in this season that we are able to educate our budget number for FY27. So those are all actual numbers. Those aren't projections.
I guess that's my question too, though. Why is 26 such a higher number than 25 and 27?
Well, again, we put out half of our RSAs in FY25 because some of them were still on a 5-year,
Yes.
the end of a 3 or 5 year contract. And so not all RSAs were bid in FY25.
I see, yeah.
And so, that FY25 period, basically, if you see the box above that, those numbers, those are the 7 RSAs that were bid in FY25. In FY26, we bid the other half, if you will, of the RSAs. And then there was 1 or 2 of the FY25 RSAs that were rebid or were included because that contractor gave up that contract. So that he wanted them to be rebid. And so FY26, it's just, those are the numbers that we got for the low bids, and we take the average of all the low miles, and that's the 11,344. I think that's the thing. We saw an increase in cost on the per mile. And again, going back into contracts, contractors being a little adverse to a new contract, new things, and it's kind of settling in. We're starting to see that settle in period now, and we're getting reduced costs. I don't need to, I got some notes here about the mill rates. I think the manager, sorry,
Assemblyperson Fonoff, please.
head on a pivot.
Thank you.
I would just like for you, because I've been following these bidding throughout the process very closely, to kind of, I guess, summarize the assembly that as the bidding started, the prices were same or even higher, but as there was new contractors were bidding, towards the end of the list of the bidding, price have significantly started dropping down, and the one that you see the percentage on the 21 and 27, which is 30 and 36% off, those were the last, I think one of the last 2 that was bid. One of them, the 27 specifically, was bid with actually increase was a little bid, but because then it went sent for a rebid, and there were still contractors that were interested in getting work, the new ones, the prices have significantly come down. So to answer Mr. Bull's question, they have used that option to rebid, and that minus 36%, that was one of the results of that. So, and if you're interested, putting something forward to cap it at 10,000 miles, something like that, $10,000 a mile, I think there's some merit there because people have realistic explanation. But I do want you to kind of notice, I guess maybe summarize that as we were going, the prices were going down because there were contractors that were involved, new contractors, and they started kind of wanting still keep some working with borough. So
Assembly Member Fanoff, yeah, I mean, you're correct, but I want to be careful. I mean, we are getting more and new contractors, right? I would say some of those more and new contractors aren't being very competitive, but the fact that they're actually submitting dollars is it could be part of the reason those costs are driving down. You know, folks are seeing that there's more competition out there, or more folks wanting to be in the competition, and so they're making sure their numbers are very competitive. And the other thing that we did too is some of these RSAs we are breaking up into smaller chunks to allow other types of contractors that might not be able to maintain a whole RSA. Now they can do maybe 50 miles versus 100 miles. The mill rates, the manager already kind of went over that. You know, we worked really hard in matching up revenues to not only the operational costs, but the proposed capital. And so maintaining 11 RSAs, we lowered the mill rate. So a zero increase in revenues. 2 RSAs had a modest increase in their revenue by about 3%. And then 2 RSAs maintained the mill rate from last year. So one of the things that, and I go back to the strategic plan, one of the focus or one of the objectives was to incorporate certified roads and maintained inventory. You know, I know that's something that continues to be a discussion, not only with assembly members, but also RSA boards. You know, I don't think I need to necessarily say, I mean, that's a challenge when you're already challenged with with costs and maintenance costs of like certified roads. So it's not that they can't be done, but it becomes more challenging when that pie becomes smaller and smaller. Want to move on to the capital side of things. You know, we just talked about the operational. This is more the capital side. You should recognize this format, this screenshot here of a RIP list. And so I just want to point out, when I first came on board here, we had this RIP list, and you go across all these RSAs, I would look at these RIP lists, and they had 12, 15 projects on them. And sometimes in these RSAs that, I mean, they were barely scraping $100,000 a year. I mean, and I look at this, and you know, this is just a snapshot of RSA 28. You know, this is one page. There's a second page here. You know, altogether, there's over $11 million of estimated cost to complete all of those projects for an RSA that you know, depending on what we do year over year, you know, $750,000. So for me, it just caused, you know, you look at it as, you know, there's unrealistic expectations being made. We would get calls from citizens saying, my project's on the RIP list. When is it going to be done? And then you look at this thing and it's priority number 11. Come back to me in 2038 and ask me that same question. So, you know, it creates confusion from members of the public. It creates a little bit of opportunity internally for us as administrators of projects to, you know, move projects around without necessarily having to come back to the assembly. There are fluctuations in the priorities as RSA boards change. You know, we've had projects that have been designed. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on design, and the RSA board then reprioritizes this list, and we don't move forward to construction. So we got plans that are sitting around without projects moving forward to construction. So, you know, it's not data driven. There's a lot of I wants, you know, eyes on. You know, we're doing better nowadays of developing data that will inform our decisions, specifically with our pavement management program. And so, and we'll talk about what I'm looking at going next. and I'll get to you, Ms. McKee, is that trying to change how we're looking at these. Maybe the RIP list changes something more that's a list, it's a needs list, but, we'll transform it, the capital program, into something that you're more familiar with, like an FSA capital program or all the rest of our capital program. This is the one, this is the one program that doesn't necessarily flush through you for every single project. So, Ms. McKee, I guess, through the mayor.
Yes,
So RSA 28, which one, where's that? Which?
RSA 28 is
Assembly
a
Member
Bishop.
McKee, can I get you to bring your mic in? I'm being
Sure.
told people in the back of the room
I'm
cannot
sorry.
hear you.
Is that better? I'm sure it is. RSA 28, which, where's that?
That'd be up Fishhook, up in that area, in between, north of Bogart a little bit, but more towards the northern side of Wasilla Fishhook, excuse me. North of, up by Shaw Elementary area.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
And to be honest with you, I purposely brought this one in here because it's going to prove a point here in a certain, because I met with some assembly members about certain projects and looking forward and, navigating how we're going to fund projects and how we have to divvy them up over years is something that, this body needs to consider about how much we actually spend in any certain year for capital. So if there's no questions on this particular here, I think we need to move away from the RIP list and then transfer into more of a capital program. And you're going to see this year, this is what the manager was saying earlier, this is the first time RSA projects have actually moved into capital. We've entered them very specifically into the capital program. So it didn't come without its challenges though. And it goes back to that last, when we were looking at the bar scale here, my capital program's getting depleted. We were able to kind of coddle together a program this year based on fund balance, because there were a number of RSAs that had fund balance savings or unspent dollars that gets transferred. And, as you're well aware, RSA dollars stay in that RSA. They don't get moved amongst RSAs. So whatever doesn't get spent in one year gets rolled over. So we were able to move those unspent dollars into capital programs in many of those. But our total program is about $7.5 million, which is $4 to $5 million less than what it has historically been. And, that will be a topic point here in a second. But we need to move away and provide expectation. We need to develop programs that very clearly show a path to completion, that when we start a project, we finish a project. And on this year, we're only able to successfully show you maybe a 2-year program. Our intent is to develop a 5-year program that will show you how a project might progress. For instance, you might start a design of a project in 1 year, and then you might have utilities and right-of-way going in that same year for a different project, and you might have a third project that actually has all of that done and is ready for construction, and you're competing with that year's appropriation to accomplish all of that work. But that's part of the strategy that we need to figure out, is how do we start looking ahead and know what that target is? Are we looking at from a perspective of assigning a mill rate that's specific to capital? Is it a dollar value that we target for each RSA? And every RSA is different, based on the assessed values in every RSA. You might have a very low threshold, and in some RSAs, you're going to have a very high threshold. But I think that goes along with the transportation network in that particular area. So I pull up RSA 28 here again, and I'm just going to point it out. We had a conversation about a project. We had a Paradise, this project here, Paradise Lane, that has been designed for 2 years now. It was supposed to go to construction last year. We had to pull the monies away from that to go solve a road that collapsed due to some erosion off of Welch. And so this project's ready to go. It's highly prioritized on their RIP list. It's, like I said, it's designed and ready to go. But, we have a $1+ million project. We had development in the area. And yet, in order to fund this project in 1 year would require a substantial increase. Well, maybe not substantial, a different cost increase in the mill rate in order to accomplish. And it doesn't fit within the model that we've been working with, where it's a slightly 3% maintain the mill rate, or or no additional revenue. So there's the challenges we have. In this case, we're proposing that particular project, and I think this would go forward in any model, that we might have to split up projects amongst different fiscal years in order to accomplish them from beginning to end. In this case, just to acquire the construction monies is going to take 2 separate funding years. So what do we do about that? Again, I go back to what I just said. Do we target a certain dollar threshold, $500,000, $750,000, $1 million, depends on the RSA you're talking about, that's specific to capital? Or do you say we're going to target $500,000, 0.6 of a mil, whatever that mil looks like, specific to capital? Because right now it's very difficult. And I think, Mr. Barkley said earlier, planning, a 5-year plan, you got to have a number to actually look at to plan. Trying to plan a program 5 years ahead without knowing what your spend is pretty difficult to do. So that's a conversation I think that needs to take place between now and maybe, later this year when we're preparing for FY28. The other part that this doesn't recognize, MVP, we're a new urbanized area, the core area, and we're still learning as an agency how to work within the confines of that. That MVP is going to get about $8 to $10 million a year, but that's managed collectively, a collaboration amongst the borough, the state, the cities. And so, we're working on a metropolitan transportation plan right now that will be produced to the policy board, and hoping to see what that might look like later this year. But, we'll have some exposure in those funds in order to do some transportation network improvements. We're not currently working on any new TIP program, bond projects that we formerly called them. I guess, at this, putting a pause on that. So there's no big package of projects that you would normally see, like our TIP 21, 23, 24 projects we're working our way through now. There is no TIP 26, 7, or 8 as I know it right now. And just recognize that putting those packages together takes a little bit of our time as well. It takes somewhere about a year in order to plan those and get them on the developer proposition. And then I just tied that into, we spoke earlier about maybe a strategy for consolidating FSAs. I want to plant the seed for maybe, going back to the MVP in the urbanized area. There is a little bit of, right now, because of our classification as a second-class borough, whenever there's a need for match for those MVP dollars, it's got to come out of the RSA. And that can be challenging. And when you have an urbanized area that bisects an RSA, and we have several, you're having some RSA dollars that are outside the urbanized area funding projects that are inside. They may or may not getting benefit of that. So, the thought of consolidating RSAs to be similar to the urbanized area, maybe you have one urbanized or one RSA within an urbanized area. And then, what do we do about that stuff outside of the urbanized area? That's not anything that has to be solved this budget cycle, but it's something that probably ought to be considered as we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Guess that's it.
Okay, Mike, go
So
ahead.
through the mayor to the assembly, just so like what's next for you because of this change in the way we're doing it for this budget cycle is when you get your budget books in the capital budget, you will have a list for every road service area. So take a look at that. You'll see what roads are programmed in there. The reason that's significant is we're actually going to open, when you approve the budget, whatever that project is, will actually get a project account with project funding. That's what's fundamentally different from the way it's been done in the past. And so if you look at that, and we have copies of the RIP list, and you think that we should be advancing different projects or more projects, and you want to have a discussion about the mill rates and revenues that would be needed to generate that, those are the conversations we can have before you go into deliberations. I also invite the road service area advisory boards, if they have comments or feedback. This is a new process for them to take a look at it, and they can provide that input, because what we are doing here is different. And I like this approach because it's fiscally constrained, but it also puts money in an account, puts a timeline on it, and it's going to improve the accountability for staff in terms of the execution of these projects. And it makes it more clear because like the Welch Way, for example, if we had Paradise Lane in a project account and Tom came back and said, I need money now to do Welch repairs, we would have had to come back to the assembly with a resolution to rescope that money and get your approval before doing that. Right? So then there would have been a conversation about, hey, Paradise just got paused. We're taking its money and doing something else. And so there's a lot of good things about that, but this is new. RSA boards aren't used to this, but I think it's a better process. So for you as assembly members, as we move forward over the next few weeks, take a look at those when you get your budget book. And if you want to talk some more, or you want some insight on why Tom planned it the way he did, or how we forecasted those revenues and mill rates for the road service areas for those in your district, let me know. We'll sit down. We're happy to talk through that. Tom's an engineer, so he's got lots of spreadsheets.
Can I just ask one question? How do the RSAs, how are they reacting to this change?
So through the mayor, some member Key. So we issued basically the draft list of capital projects to the big board last month with the intent to have a further discussion this month. As far as I know, I haven't received calls from any individual RSAs or from the big board challenging any certain projects. But that information's out there. And, I think the manager said earlier, there are some RSAs out there that would argue for higher bill rates or revenues being spent on the program. But I haven't received any individual comments yet.
Assemblyperson Fauna had a question, I think.
If you go to the slide, which has the road maintenance on there, obviously the 26 is a lot of green and very little capital there. Blue stays same. I wanted you to explain the operating and the maintenance. Maintenance we understand, capital we understand. What is included in the operating side, the blue bars?
So Mr. Fauna, that would be wages, benefits, utilities that previously would have been like the salted sand or the gravel that we would have purchased in order to be used on those contracts. There's a list of expenses that generally go into what I would call operating, that are separate from the actual maintenance contract.
So that would be like your department essentially, and all the staff and.
Well, it's the RSA. So, like my salary and benefits aren't part of the service area, part of area wide. There is a portion that goes, but it's dealt with admin and audit. Mostly it's the RMS team, the road service techs. There's a staff of 10 that's specific to roads that makes up the wages and benefits there. But when you say my department, yes, it's within Public Works. That's actually in the Operation Maintenance Division.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, you have my support when to expand the orange one. So that's always looking forward. And I think that is ultimately, I think one thing that we could, even to have a good ambulance services, they got to be operating on a road that's clear and functional and things like that. So I do think that is the one thing that we always, it's easier to kind of postpone than push back because we got something urgent, right? But if we want to be consistent with it, I think those building or improving the existing roads is a very important part of us growing.
I had a comment. I wasn't going to say myself. If we want to remain the best place to live, work, and play, we have to invest in our infrastructure, and obviously roads is part of that. If you can't get to where you want to be, you're not going to enjoy the experience you have.
Assemblyperson Bowles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Tom is also with the green. Does that involve the preventative maintenance on roads, ensuring potholes are filled, lines are filled on borough roads?
So yes, Senator Bauer or Bowles, Bowers and Bowles.
Yep.
Sorry. So that contract structure that we changed several years ago captured a lot of those things that might have been done independently of the maintenance contract. So yes, the short answer is yes. Anything that we pay our maintenance contractor, whether it be crack sealing, striping, the filling potholes typically is done by our road crews, not our maintenance crew, maintenance contractor. But those costs in the green are, anything that we have our maintenance contractor perform as part of their contract.
So I guess a caveat off of that, I've noticed, and my wife and I talk about this, the last 3 to 4 years, our roads, borough roads the maintenance has greatly improved. And we've noticed that. I've got a family back east, Massachusetts, Missouri, and Carolinas, and I challenge anybody to drive some county roads down there. So I think you all do an outstanding job with preventative maintenance and maintaining our borough roads. I have some issues with the Old Glen, the state road, and that massive miles-long fissure that goes right through the Butte and Lazy area. But we can't do anything about that until we hopefully make that a safety corridor. But yes, outstanding job. It's noticed. I've noticed it, and I can see how that green is expanding while you're also keeping the capital at the same pace. So I think that's a good job. Thank you.
Mr. Bowles, thank you. I would just add to that. In order for us to maintain that standard, we need to consider how much we're willing to invest in it. And it's becoming a challenge to continue that standard within the limited amount of funds dedicated to capital.
Assemblyperson Sumner has a question.
Oh, just a comment, Mr. Bowles, that I think that 3 or 4 years ago is about when Tom's tenure started. So there is some correlation there.
I think I need some help walking back and hold my head up or something like that. I do appreciate the comments. Listen out. Look, I don't take all the credit for it. I got a great team. I've told this to Mike, no one person gets this job done. It does involve a team, and we built a pretty good team in Public Works right now that makes my job easier, and it makes it easier to get those results that you are now seeing. So appreciate the comments.
Okay. Anybody else? Great, thank you. Next, please. Hi, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of Assembly. Alex Strawn, Planning Director. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. I'll start by saying that I know a little bit about a lot of things, but there are some things that if you scratch a little too deep, then I've got some people in the back that can cover some of your more in-depth questions. I also want to correct a couple of things that were said Tuesday night. First of all, some member Nauer said that weight restrictions would be imposed next week. Yesterday was the first day that we have weight restrictions within the borough. I also want to say that as of this morning, we had 2 applications for exemptions to those weight restrictions, one of which was Assembly Member Sumner. So I do want to correct him too, who said he wouldn't apply for one of those. He did apply to actually drive here this morning in his 3/4 ton pickup truck. And when we have the question, you have to fill out description of the non-divisible load. He put the insufferable weight of a politician's hubris. So
Did you collect his $100 for that?
He paid the $100.
Excellent.
I just want to say I do appreciate having some Narian style humor on the assembly. So it was the insufferable weight of a politician's hubris. He was not the first, he was the second. Yeah. Okay. So over the years, we gained a couple of positions. We got a person to essentially be the front face of our permit center. They also work on a lot of things to keep the load off of our permit tech so we can be fast and responsive. This was a couple of years ago we got that position. We also got a community cleanup coordinator with the new program that we got, and a full-time right-of-way inspector. This year, you'll see that the proposed budget has one less position than we have enjoyed this year, and that is the reduction of a long-range planner. And later in this presentation, I'll talk about sort of what we're looking at if that gets passed, and what our options are. As far as our accomplishments go, there's a lot of these things that you guys already know about. You've seen the legislation that's been sort of trickling through and being kind of a presence in all of your assembly meetings to clean up our code, to change code. We have the Willowa cleanup, which we've given entire presentations on. So if you have any questions about any of these things that we consider accomplishments in this fiscal year, I'm happy to ask that. I'll just highlight a couple of the accomplishments that we did have. One is fairly recently, the Fish and Wildlife Commission is a board that we do staff, and we do a lot of research for them and a lot of work for them. And unlike most boards that we have in the borough, besides the quasi-judicial parts of it, are just advisory to the assembly. The Fish and Wildlife Commission is the sole board that essentially has been given the power to advocate for some borough issues as it relates to fish and wildlife. And recently, they were able to successfully lobby to have changes to the conservation corridor that goes through the Upper Cook Inlet, and the total allowable catch, allowing more coho salmon to pass through and get into our rivers and streams, which is high priority for the assembly, and the state legislative priorities to get more fish in our rivers. And so we had a big success in doing that. And come March 2027, when the Board of Fish meets, we will be defending that position and trying to maintain that those restrictions in place. So we have branded what's been known as the Community Cleanup Program. We now call it the CLEANS Program, the Community Land Enforcement, Abatement, and Neighborhood Support Program. So it has evolved over time. It is still, of course, pretty much brand new. And if you guys haven't caught it, there was an article in the Fairbanks News Miner where their assembly adopted a program similar to ours. So it's what we hoped, that we would have success and that other communities would see what we're doing, and this hopefully will be continued to be adopted by other communities. So we went from cleaning up private property we had a little bit of money that we used and some volunteer efforts, and it really has evolved. We now are in charge of maintaining our rights of ways, as far as, and you'd be surprised at how many junk vehicles, appliances, or just mattresses or whatever may be dumped on the side of the road. And that is now under the planning department, as Mike alluded to, as well as cleanup of borough lands. And I'm proud to say, as far as on the rights of ways, we're tapped into Problem Reporter. We are, I guess, right now caught up on all the junk and trash in the rights of ways for the first time in a while, which is very exciting. There is an increase to this budget of $45,000 for heavy equipment rental. And what we found is that you can have a lot of volunteers do work, but having a bit of equipment can really be a multiplier as far as how much we can get done and how much we can get cleaned up. So yeah, I guess that's just a very exciting thing. We are now utilizing the diversion program. So every Tuesday, our community cleanup coordinator goes and meets during arraignments, and people can do a plea deal where they volunteer time to do work for the borough, and in lieu of convictions. And I think a big problem that we have in the wintertime is figuring out what these people are going to be able to do. So after me is going to be the animal care coordinator, or animal care director. They've been doing work for them, and we're keeping them busy doing different things. And of course, in the summertime, we're going to be having them really do a lot of cleanup work. So I think that's a win-win for all. And we're just starting. We're hoping to expand it into speeding tickets and things like that, so we can really increase the amount of volunteers that we have, so we can have the most impact for the smallest amount of money. So we have a lot of goals, and I won't. I guess if you look over this and you have questions about any specific ones, I'm happy to answer them. We have, Willowa was a great success this last year. We hope to do a similar type thing in Sutton. It is scheduled May 27 to May 30. And we have already talked to the community council. We have received a lot of, we already have people with the most egregious junk and trash cases have signed forms saying that they would allow us to come onto their property. We have the Church of Latter-day Saints have agreed to have volunteer presence there again for this effort. And it's another very exciting, going to be a high profile project where we're going into a community and cleaning up a huge amount of trash. Alaska Waste has also said they're going to help donate trash bins, and we have Carter DeBach helping with cars. So we'll give more on that as we come closer, and certainly give a report after it's done. And really, we're looking at other parts of the borough too. There are just hot spots in the borough where there's a lot of junk and trash in a small area where we can sort of set up a shop, get a large base of volunteers, gather it all and get it out of there and clean up that area. So very exciting. We have accredited developer training coming up. That's on Monday. It's an 8-hour class. This was at the request of Assemblymember Sumner in an assembly meeting. We thought it was a great idea, so we applied to the State of Alaska Department of Commerce to have our curriculum accredited. So if you're a licensed contractor, this provides 8 continuing education credits, and we're going to cover CUPs and flood permits and driveway permits and all the things, how do you navigate our GIS resources. And we're basically going to run people through how to navigate the borough permitting process. And so we're very excited about that. We do hope to, this is the first annual, and we hope next year that this could potentially be continuing education credits for real estate agents and land surveyors, engineers, things like that, so we can get more people. We have 18 people signed up right now. We are providing sort of a continental breakfast and drip coffee for people who do attend, so spread the word. It's not too late to sign up. We'll be putting that on Monday right here in this room, Monday morning.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Does, could assembly members, I'm sorry, did you give me permission? Thank you. Can assembly members take this course?
Yes.
Oh, goody.
This is open to anybody who wants to take it.
Okay, it starts, you said Monday?
Monday morning.
What time?
8 a.m. right here.
Thank you.
Yep. Hopefully, Nick has a comment.
Mr. Attorney?
If anyone plans on going, please coordinate through the clerk's department because we don't want a quorum.
Okay. Looks like we have 2 going, 3 going. So if we get any more, then we would have to advertise. That could be a problem. So
Yeah,
talk
we
to Lonnie
probably
about that.
won't have time to advertise
Yeah.
by Monday.
That's right.
Because I think, what did they just publish tomorrow, isn't it? Frontiersman just published this
That is
tomorrow.
correct. Fridays only.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, please coordinate that with Lonnie. Thank you. Yeah. So we have the official streets and highways plan, and later on, I'm going to have a slide with so we're down to 3 long-range planners in our what we call the planning division. With this budget, it would go down to 2. One of our planners, if you don't know her, Julie Spackman, she's pretty incredible. She has really taken on full-time transportation planning duties. There is a very strong need for this, and Assemblymember Nowers was spot on when she said, from the time you have an idea for a road improvement project to the time you put cones on the road and actually start digging dirt and having flaggers out there, there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of time that has to pass through, and it's very, very complicated. There's different pots of money and different about 1,000 acronyms you have to know, and I guess so there's a lot that goes into it, and we are looking at potentially shutting down schools, but population growth is not slowing down. There's still going to be cars on the road. There's going to be more cars on the road, and need for transportation projects to prevent accidents and prevent congestion and things like that. So we cannot be complacent. We have to continue to plan for road projects in the future. And for us to have a list of projects that go into a tip that goes onto the ballot for people to vote for, there's a lot that goes into that to get to that point where you have a list. And it really starts with our official streets and highways plan. That is, for the most part, it's a map. It also has some words associated with it, but it is a big map that shows the classification of roads, and it shows the location of future road corridors. And we base decisions on this map. So when platting actions happen, when we're issuing permits for driveways or big developments, we are referencing this plan to make our decisions. And so it's important that plan is up to date and accurate. And with the recent adoption of the Bogard-Selden Corridor Access Management Plan, there now is a conflict between what is in the official streets and highways plan and what has been adopted between our corridor access management plan. So if nothing else, we need to update that section of the plan. But there are other corridors that we have information on or need to get information on to ensure that those are accurate, that it makes sense that we have a line in a particular area, because we are basing decisions on this. So it's important that we have that up to date. So Julie is kicking off updating of that plan. Fortunately, we do have money in a project account if we need to hire a contractor to help update that plan. So we're not asking for money for that. I'm just letting you know that we have one planner that's solely dedicated to transportation planning. I'll pause there if I have any questions on anything on this slide or anything. Okay. Okay, so we finally have some ridership data for transit. We have 5 months worth, and this is what's been provided by Valley Transit. Oh, let those numbers sink in for you there. So while they may, it bothers me that these buses, the windows are tinted. I can never tell if there's people in there or not. But based on these numbers, it looks like there are people on those buses. And the funding portion of it, I'm just displaying here that last year, the state of Alaska covered the first 3 months, and this year they did not. So while the funding level is stayed the same, there is going to be some sort of decrease in service because of the funding level that we're at, if it is in line with the manager's budget. I'm going to move on in case, unless anybody has any questions.
So the computer, service on for the red line, I guess that's what mine looks like anyway, that's for all of them, or is that, and then the demand one is Anchorage one? Yeah. Or explain those numbers to me, please.
So I'm going to try, and I'm going to look back here. If I misspeak or if I get in a little too deep, or I'll call upon Jason, who's really been managing this. So the commuter service is what brings people to Anchorage.
Okay.
And the demand response is the one where you can call or sign up to have it come pick you up in a particular area and drop you off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, assembly person, one sec, go ahead, sir.
I was just going to add that through the mayor to the assembly, just so you're aware of what we communicated to Valley Transit, because we're still planning, right? Like we don't have an approved budget yet. So what we asked for were impacts because of the state funding, and that this covers a 12-month period now, is, if that would reduce services, one of the things we asked for was to see how they might prioritize those reductions to the commuter service. In other words, the fixed routes to Anchorage over reducing the demand response from within the valley.
Right.
So just so you understand, we've asked that question. And again, opportunities to get with Valley Transit, invite them in to be part of the discussion and talk about more details.
Okay, assembly person hours and then assembly person Sumner.
So the numbers like for February for commuter service, the 2,700, is that one person going to Anchorage and coming back, or is that?
I believe that is one person, one way.
One person, one way.
We'll look back. He's nodding yes.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And the demand response, is that a lot of times those people aren't, that's also one way, I guess is.
Correct. That's
Yeah,
one
okay.
person making one trip.
Okay, thank you.
Assemblyperson Sumner and then Assemblyperson Bowles.
Another way of stating this is, if you look at, say, December's ridership, 2,054, right? Or, well, any month, 2,500, divide that by 20 work days, where we have like 12 people going, or 120 people going back and forth, to work using this. Has there been any discussion about dropping commuter service entirely and transitioning to an intra borough service with those buses, those commuter buses? Wasilla to Palmer to Talkeetna, sort of thing.
So one thing I will say is we have been given the direction is because this has been fast and furious. When we got that census designation, we had to develop an MPO. We all of a sudden were dealing with transit, and our guidance has been maintain the status quo of what we have. And we right now have a vacant planning position that was handling transit. And I agree that if we're cutting a check for over $200,000 a month between our funding and the federal funding. I think it is important that we have these conversations and we have people that are able to really think these things through. I also think that the Metropolitan Planning Organization needs to have a role in developing a plan for what transit's going to look like. But right now our direction has been to maintain the status quo of what we had prior to the UZA.
Okay, Assemblyperson, oh, I'm sorry, did you go ahead?
I had a comment.
Okay, Assemblyperson Bowles, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Alex. So just talk about December 2054. What's the average fee that riders are paying? That's being collected, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm gonna look in the back there. I think it's small. I think it's like somewhere around $5 or something like that. But it depends on, I think it depends on how many, where you're starting and where you're going. There are certain exemptions for certain types of groups. So I think it's variable, but it's very small. I think it's in the realm of like less than $7. Yeah.
What's the largest fee somebody would pay?
It looked like
I'm looking in the back of the
he
room.
had
I
his
don't know.
feet in the go mode there back there. He was been trying to come up, I think. Did you want to comment now? No. Okay.
Jason Ortiz, Deputy Director of Planning, through the mayor to Assemblymember Bowles. That's a hard question to answer directly, but I'll give you some generic answer responses, right? Someone could obtain a monthly membership to do demand response, or excuse me, do fixed route. And I think that's like $120 a month that they would pay to ride all the time. If they're riding just like one way, they're paying like $7, or I think it's $7 or so. And if they're doing a round trip, it's like $10 or $12, somewhere around there. That's for fixed route. Demand response depends. It goes by zones. So if someone's going from your area out in the Butte to Big Lake, they're going to pass through multiple zones, and each zone is charged at a rate. And it depends if they're going there and coming back. So it's really all over. If you want like more specific data or want to look at that, I'd be more happy to provide and kind of show you what we got.
I would appreciate that. Yeah. So just off the cuff at $12 for 2054, that's $24,000, $24,600 a month, times 12. That's less than $300,000 that the borough is bringing back in on a, what's that? But the point is, I'm not sure that this is a feasible thing for the borough. I know it's a service. I know people use it, but maybe this is something that could be considered to help save money and utilize taxpayer money somewhere else. So, thank you.
Yeah, so through the mayor, I'll just say this. I proposed this number at a flat level for a reason, right? Last year was a status quo. Let's get in the service, get a contract out so we don't have just a shutdown of services, especially when we really didn't, and maybe even to some degree now, even don't understand the full impact. Proposing it at flat when it's covering 12 months is going to generate some conversation. This conversation should be had. And then we can figure out what it is that we want it to look like. And we're not the only ones to be at the table when this is had. I do agree with Alex. We talked about this the other day, is, you know, this was all predicated by this urbanized area designation. Well, that's exactly what drove the MPO to be stood up too. So when we talk about this, and you're going to see a slide in just a minute that's going to talk about long-range planning, right? And so when I think about transit planning predicated by an urbanized area designation and an MPO that was following the same logic, I would like to see federal dollars coming in to support planning, and that's being done in the MPO, not within the borough. What my argument has been is I don't want to see that overlapping services take place. If the feds are driving this UA designation that's driving transit and the MPO, then we ought to be able to leverage those federal funds to support those planning efforts, not double up and try to do it here and there at the same time. So it's just something when Alex lays out the long-range planning that we need to consider. And I think the biggest thing they could do to help us right now is get a transit development plan together and have a plan for the future that's right sized for the Mat-Su borough. We don't currently have that. And so that is a gap that we need to figure out how to fill one way or the other, as we're flying the plane. So we're going to build it and fly it at the same time because that's where we are.
Assemblyperson Bowles, did you have a follow-up or question?
Thank you, Manager Brown. So I guess a follow-up question would be, so what I'm hearing is it's a requirement for the MVP that the borough provides a transportation plan or transportation service, or can that be privatized? Can there be a privatized public transportation system that qualifies the borough still?
Yeah, so the feds cannot require you to provide a transit service. All right, that's why a non-federal match is required. And let's be clear, all across the country, transit is heavily subsidized. Right? So what we're talking about here is not unique to the Mat-Su. This idea of lower fares and that type of thing, that's consistent across the country. That's why you see such a heavy infusion of Federal Transit Administration dollars, because that's what it takes to prop up the service. We'll call it what it is. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's the reality of how it works. What I'm suggesting is we do need to figure out what we want this to look like moving forward, and we don't know that today. And so, it's a little awkward because you're like, hey, we got to make this appropriation and we've got the service out there. Yeah, it's just where we are. And this isn't really unique to us. I think most municipalities, when they go through this transition, we saw it with the MPO as well. We're like, what do we do? And we don't have a TIP and we don't have an MTP. Well, we're working through that. And so we've got to work through that with transit as well.
Do we know nationally if there are other transit systems like the going into Anchorage? That's really probably a fourth of the way in our borough and 3/4 of the way in Anchorage, right? So should we have a discussion with Anchorage regarding we would go to Eklutna and then it would be their responsibility to provide the transit to whatever their designation is? I don't know.
Yeah, so I can't go
So
through the
I'm
mayor
just
because it's
asking
to
it.
the mayor.
Yeah.
So to the mayor. No, it's a fair question. That's exactly what we need a transit development plan to discuss. Now, in all fairness, Anchorage provides transit services to the valley. So I don't want this to come across as a one-way thing where we're funding all the service into Anchorage. That whole ride share,
Right.
van ride, share ride, that's all 100% funded by Anchorage through their program. We're not participating in that as a borough. And so it is occurring both ways. How equitable is it, or, how robust, or how much does it cover? I don't think we can answer that for you. But just so you're all clear, I don't want you to think it's completely one-sided. That whole rideshare program for years has been is really coming out of a program under the Muni, right? And so, just so you kind of understand, I don't have any ridership data for what that program looks like, though.
But when we talked about this a long time ago, it seemed like the rider share assist, especially the ones that took and went just directly to the base, was not financed through Anchorage, it was financed through a grant from the feds or am I remembering that correctly or what?
Yeah, to the mayor, I think that's correct. Like the J-Bear, the federal government through J-Bear is participating in the stuff that's specific to J-Bear. But the ride share extends beyond just J-Bear.
Does it? Okay, yeah, 'cause the only ones I was familiar with were the people going to J-Bear, so, okay. Yeah, I haven't seen the rideshare vans around. It must still be a service, huh? I mean, I used to see them like at the grocery store and riding around town and things like that, but I haven't seen them. Is it still a thing? Does somebody know?
So I don't know. Jason's nodding yes.
Okay, maybe Michael knows. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
My understanding, and this is just my looking into it, is that transportation services were viable until about 2020, 2021 when COVID hit. And then that really just destroyed them. Inside big cities, they came back. People are still riding trains, things like that. But as far as more urban areas, it just destroyed them. And in ours specifically, people don't ride buses anymore because they don't want to sit next to somebody that might be sick. And that's kind of where people are at right now.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and the other question, I think if we have a full discussion, is a van versus, if on the rides into Anchorage, there's 10 to 12 people, is it better than for us to have vans rather than buses and that kind of thing? So that would be something I think if we do have an in-depth to look at. I don't know. I guess maybe it's just irritating to me when you're in Anchorage and you see 3 people get off of a big bus. Assembly person, Sumner.
I mean, how many routes are there per day to and from Anchorage?
14.
So yeah, it's actually like 3 or 4 people on each bus. How many, is it 7 days a week or 6?
6 days a week, sounds like.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah.
Is that the reason they tint the windows? Go ahead.
So through the mayor to the assembly, the reason we're bringing this up, we still have time. Like I would invite you to, we can get it set up if you're interested. If you want to go out to Valley Transit, you want to talk about the service, you want to look into the routes, you want to talk more details, I would absolutely encourage that. Tell us what you want to see and we will set that up and make it happen.
Okay, can I have a head nod from Assembly or thumbs up? Yeah, okay, I see. Maybe not, yeah, okay. So I think the majority say yes, sir, so thank you.
Very good. I'm glad I put this slide in here just to get the conversation going. So yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is my final slide, and I just want to talk about what our 3 long-range planners do. So generally speaking, we usually have about $175,000 in planning studies that we either use on a study or we roll it into a project account for a specific study, which requires legislation. This year, we are not asking for any money in planning studies because we do have money in some project accounts that need to be used up, and specifically for the official streets and highways plan and some other transportation related items. So the one on the far left is strictly transportation, and I do not see that changing. That's a pretty important thing that we do. We have a planner right now that was the one in the center, essentially, that is managing the Clean Water Act grant, which is an effort to put an effort in front of the MS4 permitting, which is a whole nother ball of wax that we can get into if you wanted to. But this was a grant we got to educate the public and specifically lakeside owners on best management practices for living around a lake. It ties into our water body setbacks as well. And then we have a draft historic preservation plan that is very soon going to be put out to the public and to the various boards and will come to you for adoption. So that has not been updated since 1985. And it's got some pretty good recommendations in it. And then there's management of the Fish and Wildlife Commission, and then preparation for the 2030 census. Believe it or not, there's going to be a lot of work that goes into the census that is going to be up to the planning department to do. So that's going to be at least a portion of one of our planners' duties in doing that. And then some of the things that are probably not going to happen if we lose this planner is it's going to be very difficult to do any really good deep work on transit. Jason is covering it, but he's got a million different things that he's doing on. So it would be good to have a planner who really could buckle down and focus on that. We do have the borough-wide comprehensive plan, which we already have invested a lot in. We've spent money on that. We've gone out to the community. We've got input from the community, and right now it's on my desk. And to be perfectly frank, it is very difficult as a planning director to take the time to have some quiet time to write a comprehensive plan. So it would be great to have a planner to sort of take that on as a project and button that project up and bring it to you guys. As we stated in a previous meeting, we'll not be doing community comprehensive plans. We've already had a couple of requests for community comprehensive plans. No review of plat reviews. Our platting techs are very good at looking at Title 43 and all the technical parts of that. But really the long range planners are able to take a bigger picture view, looking at the official streets and highways plan, for instance, and different things, and seeing how that ties into our plat reviews. And then, there's other requests that come along always, such as initiation of a new community council or amendment of community council boundaries. These things are all handled by the planning department. And with a reduction in a planner, we just will not have the ability to handle these things as they come in. So we'd probably be looking at, I don't know exactly how it'll shake out, but we'll probably be looking at options, one of which would be community development department taking over the Fish and Wildlife Commission, for instance, is one of the options we're looking at. So I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what our three planners are doing, and so you can make an informed decision as you go through the budget process. And that is the last of my slides.
Okay. I've had a request for a break from one of the assembly people, so we'll go ahead and break until 2, and then we'll come back. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. You're one of
I can go ahead and have the assembly reassemble, please. You have 2 minutes. Okay.
We're here all day.
Okay.
It's not like it's 10 o'clock at night.
Okay, one says 2 and one says 1:59, I guess. I was just going to say,
I was messing with Alex.
oh, okay. We've had I think some of the assembly people or persons have a question. So, Alex, if we could ask you to return to the podium, and it is exactly 2:00 now. So, okay. Any of the assembly have? Yes. Okay.
You touched on the success of diversion program and what we did by last year adding the full-time position. I know Jason has been working a lot with that and the success of that. I just wanted if he can give us a summary what kind of things we've done and what are the plans moving forward, because I do think we are utilizing a lot of people that just would have paid fine to state Alaska or have all that going on, how now that is actually benefiting, whether we get more volunteers at the food banks, animal shelter, or maybe more serious projects that are being done, and how much it's actually saving us potentially versus us hiring a contractor to do the same demo project or something like that. I think it's just good to have a couple minutes to summarize that, if I may ask.
Turn the mic on. Go ahead.
I don't know if we're the ball hogs because the Q&A has to be deducted from that, but through the mayor to Assembly Member Fonoff. So the successes of the newly created Cleans program has been pretty wide. And there's been a lot. I mean, it's really been innovative in what we've been able to do for just a fraction of what it would normally cost to do things. So the diversion is just one of those things. Our diversion program is nothing, we didn't reinvent the wheel. What we did is take what the wheel was there, dissect it, and figure out how to make it work efficiently. And it's really what occurred here. So our program coordinator going to every Tuesday to arraignments, sitting there with the district attorney, and then seeing the successes. They're seeing those people go through the program really fast. Those are ultimately people that are repaying their harms through the justice system and saving money. So we are saving the state money. There's a time and wage burden analysis that can be calculated. And we're saving a lot of money to the state. So we're starting to track those measurements. A really interesting meeting recently with the Attorney General's office reached out to us, and they saw the success. They saw what you as a body, as the assembly recognized that diversion program and the partnership with the district attorney's office. And they've been seeing all the successes in the news and the media's reported on, and they were like, we have not seen anything like this. We want to model our diversion program statewide with what you guys are doing. So we had a meeting with them. They're super excited. They're just blown away at what we're doing and how we're doing things for just a fraction of the cost. At the Sutton cleanup that Alex spoke about, like, you're going to probably see the district or the attorney general and the deputy attorney general attending that to see how well the community can come together and what that means. I don't know if you drive down Bogard, right at the beginning of Willowall, you'll see a house that was demolished there. Yeah, that we were supposed to do that during the Willowall cleanup. It didn't take effect. We ended up doing that through one of our diversion programs. So we had a person that went out there, spent 3-4 days, demolished it. It's a flat piece of land and we literally looks great. And that didn't cost the borough a penny because we did that through the diversion program. Some of the other things that we're really going to focus on by combining here is the needs of the public. So what we're gonna do is take a look and see how can we respond to the needs of the public and do it quick with the problem reporter. So you're gonna start seeing what we're gonna aim to do is have these 12 and 24-hour response times for cleanup in the right ways, cleans up just throughout the borough. Working with more, just bringing in partners and making the dollar stretch pretty far.
Okay, Assembly,
So,
you have
to-
follow-ups? Sir?
Yeah. So I guess in some ways you could have a low level infraction or something like that. We could we have a reporter. There's a washer and dryer on the side of the road, right? That needs to be picked up. We could arrange it so that we're working really efficient and it's not costing us. So like those are some things. Another thing I know you closely looked into is the public transit and possibly the creative ways that can be done. And with currently having the bus strikes and people not able to take it, the kids to schools, it just creates even the traffic and all that. Has there been any thoughts or looked into other areas how perhaps that a public transit and a school bus is kind of in some ways a partner or helping each other or something that could potentially work in some way, shape, or form together?
Yeah, there's definitely opportunities to look into all that. Right now, we have a challenging time, right? As kids that are in the district and Durham not operating, that's a challenge for parents. And so looking at that transportation system and looking at how our transit system operates and seeing how we can find efficiencies, those are definitely opportunities that can be had. But it's kind of piggybacks to what Alex was talking about. Like we do have to have that staff that can make sure that we have staff to do those types of things. But the research is definitely there. Manager Brown has talked about it, and it's definitely a topic of conversation.
Okay, Assemblyperson Nowers, do you still have your question?
Thank you. This is maybe, well, both Alex and you, but, the budget, I want to be tight with the budget but I also don't want to do things that save us short term, but cost us that penny wise and pound foolish kind of thing. And I just, want to put some thought into that planner. And you spoke to a little bit about it if we cut that down to 2 positions instead of 3. But I just wonder if you have any thoughts on some of the ways we could be costing ourselves financially if we don't get ahead of some of these things. And I just, like, things I'm thinking about are, like Shaw Elementary, where we're now playing catch up on the expensive way to fix traffic, and it's costly for the residents. We have a little foresight, we can save ourselves. So that's a really broad question, but just like ways that you see if we were able to find funding for a planner, just really some of the costs that we might save in the future by spending that money now.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think what reduction of planner would really do is reduce our responsiveness to requests of comp plans or special use districts or whatever it may be. One of the ones that could be a future cost savings is if we do indeed decide to fund transit, to have a planner that's able to really work on an efficient transit system to make sure that money is spent appropriately. It might be something that would be a cost savings if we had an additional planner. I think a lot of, certainly, I don't think we're going to be picking any new school sites anytime soon. But you talked about the opposite of having a working group that would do the opposite if we're going to decommission a school, having a committee do that. That's the type of thing that planners do. We're super good at doing research and putting together groups and facilitating meetings and things like that. So those are the types of things that a planner would do that could potentially have cost savings in the future. But I don't know if that.
Okay, thank you. I think that answer is just something I'm thinking about, especially when it comes to our roads, because we pay a lot of money to play catch up, and we have things like Bogart Ingstrom, which is partly the state, but partly us, and trying to avoid those. So that's helpful. I just something I definitely will be looking at as we go through the budget process.
Yeah, I think that transportation planning is probably our top priority. So if you were to cut everything, that's the, besides one, that's the thing that we would do. That has real dollars and cents implications into the future. Yeah.
Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is for the assembly, because I'm going to own this. This was my idea, not Alex's idea. It's not obvious. But I'll say it this way. This is a really good example of what I talked about earlier. This is a trading capacity for economy, right? And so some of it's intentional. I will tell you that I wouldn't expect the reduction of a planner to adversely affect transportation in any way, shape, or form. Because if you kept a planner, you're still going to have one transportation planner assigned for transportation. This would not deplete the Fish and Wildlife Commission or take any resources away from them. That's an assembly priority. What this would do, if you look in that, I guess, pink block, we do need to sort out transit. I think there's an argument to be made because the MTP and the TIP that the MVP is doing, the MPO is doing, I know it was a lot of acronyms, we want to leverage those federal dollars to help. That's the whole value of being urbanized, if there's going to be one. There's certainly some drawbacks. I would make the same argument for transit planning, that could come out, because you have 3 or 4 staff members over there in the MPO where we had 0 2 years ago or 3 years ago, right? And so I want to see us be able to take advantage and leverage those federal funds in a positive way. What we talked about during the Joint Assembly Planning Commission meeting was, we would give up some capacity to do things like community comp plans, special use districts requests that might come up. And so we want to be very forthcoming. That's why we brought it up in March and to kind of seed that conversation. I don't see the school site selection committee being an issue in the near term. And frankly, I think the plat reviews can be mitigated too. So I just want to be clear. This is a capacity for economy. This is not a service level reduction, in my opinion. Now, part of it is to make a point, with the movement of salaries and cost and healthcare and all these other competing things, if we're gonna put pressure on spending, there will be hard decisions to do that, right? And so what we're proposing in this budget are those capacity economy adjustments, not service level reductions. But we're also putting it out there. So if you think we're giving up capacity that you're uncomfortable giving up, that's where amendments would come into play. But I also recognize, we're talking about a planner here. Let's not forget Public Works gave up 3 positions, and Finance gave up a position, and the clerk's office gave up a position. So, I can make similar arguments for every other department in the borough. So this is what it might look like if that's our desire. So I just kind of wanted to explain that, because I don't want you to think this is just some irresponsible, we're going to toss a position to the curb and we don't care about the functions that it provided. I'm just looking at things have changed, right? Like we have an MPO and some of these other things. I want to make sure we're fully utilizing that, not doing this thing where it's like, well, they're over there, we're over here, therefore we must have 2 of each kind of thing. And so I just kind of wanted to put that out there for your consideration. That's why this was introduced the way it was introduced, because we have plenty of time to talk about this. And frankly, if there's community councils and others out there that are like, yeah, we want community comp plans, well, great, make your case, right? That's what the public process is about.
Assemblyperson Sumner, question or comment, sir?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, you're faced with difficult decisions. I would much rather face the pain of how to allocate our limited resources than face the pain of raising people's taxes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the assembly?
I just have a brief.
Yes, Assemblyperson McKee, go ahead.
And this might be frivolous, maybe not. When you're talking about volunteers, I heard the LDS folks are getting out there. Where are the Catholics and the Lutherans and the Muslims and the Episcopal? How did the word get to them, and how could it get to the other folks?
through the mayor to Assemblymember McKee. When we reached out for Willowa, I think is probably what you're referring to. We went down and approached every church on that entire row. And there were definitely some Catholic folks from the Catholic Church that assisted in the cleanup, but the bulk of it, where it was sanctioned from like the higher up of the organizational structure, was the Latter-day Saints, where they stepped up and said, we're going to adopt it and we're going to mandate it, that, or ask, for the volunteers from their congregation, not mandate. And so that is where we really got large numbers from. But we did approach every church up and down right there in Bogar within the proximity of Willowa. So we have others that have reached out. There's lots of them. And Mayor just forwarded me a contact to reach out to, and we have a couple. So there's other groups. So they're out there.
Good on the audience.
Yeah.
Hey, any further? Oh, Assembly.
I guess to Alex, if you go to your first page that has department information, I just did the calculation, and it's not like the difference on the 22 where you have a 27 FT and then 27, 29, the difference is 1.3, almost 1.4 million dollars. Is that increase mostly in the wages, or what is the main factor of this significant increase over 5 years?
Oh, so you're saying from FY22 to FY27?
Yeah. That's the math, $1.4 million for only 2 extra positions.
That's an interesting question. So, and Mike Brown probably can,
Through the mayor to Mr. Fallon, salaries and benefits.
Yeah.
Is the cost driver. I mean, it's the same thing for schools and for us. The primary cost driver is primary. It's not the only one, right? Because we have other costs and contracts and things that go up, but it's predominantly salaries and benefits. That's where it's difficult to offset increases where those are coming through collective bargaining agreements and stuff like that, and still like keep spending reined in. I mean, that's the challenge with having full-time employees, and increasing that over time, because it does come with a recurring cost.
And I will say that all the directors were given very clear direction to right size our budgets. And when you look at across the board, our different line items, we have reduced most of the items in there to reflect our actual expenditures. Oh yeah, well, and of course we added a whole new division, which is the cleans program. We added a community cleanup coordinator. We have a couple of seasonals now. So this has not been discussed, but in this budget, there's a position that went from the landfill over, and it was broken into 2 part-time positions. So it's actually a reduction that is going to be in our department this year. But also there's the funding for the equipment and the storage of that equipment, all sorts of different things that go into the community cleanup program. But yeah, I would say the vast majority is, we added a couple of positions, as well as the rising cost of wages and benefits.
And I guess the 26 and 27, we can see that's fairly consistent. Actually, it's lower. So that's actually good. I was just saying overall, what kind of things that drove that. And I guess is with some of the planners specifically, a lot of it writing, I guess, are we in the process where we utilize online tools and AIs and just to help maybe a data? Because I know that sometimes takes a lot of time to do, but with some of the prepping and things like that, some of the tools that we have now are just like, can save hours and things like that. Do you plan to start utilizing that? Because I do think there's probably a lot of value in that. Paying like a membership of $15 a month and then getting thousands of dollars worth of value out of it.
So we do use all sorts of tools, including artificial intelligence, on a daily basis. I will say that I created a project in AI, and I plugged in our old comprehensive plan and all the information that came from the public, and started a whole project with that. And the output that I got was pretty garbage. It still takes a human touch, at least right now. It takes human time to do the hard work. But certainly AI is a tool that we can use, and we do use it on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you.
And exploring new ways to use it as well.
Okay, alrighty, I think that wraps it up then, sir. Thank you. All right, thanks for sticking around. Okay, next.
I'm short. I'll pull this down. Vanessa Forbes, Animal Care and Regulation Director. Good afternoon, Mayor and Assembly members. Last April when I was here, I'd only been here for about 3 months. So I didn't fully own, I guess, what was presented last year. This year, I'm happy to say that, you know, we've made a lot of progress moving forward. And we did it in a time of great transition with not only me as a new leader, but other new leaders in the department as well, and then several changes in staff as that goes. So this year, it really does reflect my direct involvement, intentional decisions that we've made, and then really focusing on what our actual service demand looks like. So it was a year of learning for me, and hopefully this all kind of reflects what we've learned throughout the last year. So you've seen these for everybody's presentation. This is our budget proposal for this next year. And really our focus this last year, or for this next year, was a cost containment mindset. So we worked really hard as a staff and looked line by line to see where our spending was, where it should be, and really look at other ways in which we can make sure that we are being kind of critical in how we spend and how we plan on spending in the future. So you will notice on there that there is the smallest of increases of maybe about 61,000 for the overall budget. And it's not lost on me that a lot of departments are losing staff, and that we are getting or asking for an additional officer. But we are also moving from non-area wide to area wide and taking on the enforcement for 3 cities. So there we go. So over 2025, we managed about 2,500 animals. And then you'll see just below that, that 2,200 of those were through enforcement cases. A majority of all of our animals enforcement and that come in directly to the shelter are our strays. So those are the animals that are running, you know, in neighborhoods, loose, and a potential safety hazard for our residents. 130 of those were seized or brought into custody for investigative purposes, and then 41 others that I won't explain why. It's not a fun story as to why those come into our shelter. And then 638 of those are actually owner surrender. So the reasons those might come into the shelter, people are losing their homes, they're moving and can't take their animals with them, different cost reasons. Our average daily population over 2025 was about 125 animals. So our very small staff, you know, has to clean, feed, take care of all of those animals on a daily basis, as well as bring in whatever cases are happening, and then all the spays, neuters, and medical care as well. The thing I am probably most proud of for 2025 is our live release rate. So that was at 73.9 when I came on board, and through the efforts of my staff, that's gone up to 83.4%. National average is at 77, so happy to say that we are beating that by a pretty good margin. Our foster placements did increase, so our fosters are growing. We've also got 12 active rescue partners, 5 new in 2025. One of the exciting things about that is some of them are for our smalls. Everybody knows that there's a rabbit issue out there, and a lot of them come into our shelter. Some of them are feral rabbits, some of them are nicer rabbits, but we are partnering with PetSmart in Anchorage, and they're having some wide success in rehoming some of our rabbits for us. 422 animals were transferred to rescues, which is how we are keeping some of our intake numbers a little bit lower and improving our capacity for care. And then we've had almost 1,500 volunteer hours in the shelter in 2025. Some of that comes from Alex's program. So that's been extremely helpful. And our volunteers really are excited about doing the work. So they're not just doing laundry and dishes anymore. They're helping with some of the other functions so that some of our staff can focus more on assisting residents.
Can I ask a question before you go on?
Assemblyperson McKee.
Back to that other slide. The 422 animals transferred to rescues, is that part of that 10% increase that you have? Is that related to that under life release?
So when through the mayor to Assemblymember McKee, when an animal is transferred out, their outcome is listed as a transfer. So essentially, yes, it's a live outcome. We don't have control as to what happens to that animal after, though we do assist them with medical care or anything like that they may need.
And are they spayed and neutered when they leave you guys?
Depends on age, but if they're too young, then they come back to us. We spay and neuter them for the rescue before they go out and get adopted.
Assemblyperson Fauna.
On the volunteer support hours, do you know out of that almost 1,500 hours, is vast majority, half of it or more than half of it through the diversion and the program from our planning department that they're finding, or what would you say percentage approximately wise?
Through the mayor to Assemblymember Fanoff. I don't have an exact number. I wouldn't say that it's half, maybe about 25%. They usually come at least once a week, and 1 or 2 people, but we have a large pool of volunteers that come through our regular process.
Are these people that come through that program, are you getting some value out of it, or they're just there to complete just hours to be out of there? I mean, in the honest, what do you see?
Through the mayor to Assemblymember Fanoff. No, we're getting a lot of value. It's a rare occasion that they're not engaged and effective in what they're doing. As I walk through the shelter, often they're asking me, what else can I do? I've finished my task. Can I stay? So no, it's been a wonderful program.
That's good. And is there room if there's more volunteers for you to put them to use, or you're kind of have too much volunteers already?
I can never have enough volunteers.
All right, Jason, I think, and you guys heard that, so.
I can never have too many volunteers. So this slide focuses really on our enforcement team. You'll notice that there have been 410 bites over 2025. That doubled from the year prior. And each of those is not a one call case. Obviously, that's ongoing with appeals and hearings and all of that. We really do attribute that, I think, to our growing population and the diversity of our residents here, especially as people move in and move into maybe the more rural areas and animals out there. People are used to having them off leash. Most of our enforcement cases, again, to come from those stray cases, so officers having to go out and pick up strays. Enforcement cases as a whole rose from 2,035 to 2,200 approximately this last year. So it's just, again, paired with, I think, our increase in population. Our stray intake through cases actually did decrease a little bit, and we really do attribute that to officers trying to get these animals back to their homes before they come into the shelter, which helps with our capacity for care, and it helps, you know, our residents as well. It also gives them an opportunity to educate our residents while they are out there. So hopefully, it reduces the amount of animals coming into the shelter that need to be managed. Some of our shelter capacity that has come through here lately also was some cruelty cases. We had 7 over this last year where we had some larger seizures. We were able to successfully transfer most of those animals out and negotiate some, I think, some good outcomes with our residents as well. So looking forward, as you can see, it says that down there in bold, on July 1st, we'll be moving to area-wide. In conversations with the 3 cities, we're estimating, we're projecting about 800 more cases per year, and that comes primarily through, I think, Wasilla and Palmer. Currently, with the officers we have on staff, they run about 550 cases per year, each officer. This will take them up to about 600, and that is with the additional officer. So even with an additional officer, they'll be taking on more cases than they have here currently. Any questions on this slide before I move forward? The one that I want to highlight here the most is our community spay and neuter services. So we launched this July of last year. This was with the $20,000 allocation by the Assembly. Thank you for that. We were able to do about 32 in-house procedures and then 54 with partnerships with the Alaska Rural Veterinary Outreach. So they were able to use our facilities, and we were able to market some of those clinics as well. Most of the in-house procedures that we did were in concert with our enforcement. So we would identify homes that had problems with hoarding large populations of 30, 40, 50 cats or dogs, and we would work with them to spay, neuter those that they wanted to keep, and then help them rehome the rest. So again, reducing populations in the community. Questions?
Person McKee?
I'd like to give you guys a shout out. I used the ARVO, the Alaska Rural Veterinary Outreach thing. They were so professional and so kind to us and to our animal. Really a good job. And I really don't know how the billing on that goes. Was I supposed to get billed, or what I did is I gave the fee that I thought I was going to have to pay to the borough. I just did a charitable donation to them, but
Through the mayor, thank you for making a charitable donation. Those fees were covered with the $20,000 from the borough.
Person Sumner?
Since you use the service, does that mean you won't be voting on the spay and neuter clinic later on?
Any further questions on this slide? Okay. All right, so looking to 2027, of course, we want to maintain our fiscal responsibility. So most of the things that we are looking at are through our partnerships with other organizations. So we want to continue our spay and neuter efforts. So we are looking at partnering not only with ARVO, though the fee would be passed on to those getting the spays and neuters without that built into our budget for this coming year. We're also looking at an organization called The Good Fix. They are from the lower 48, but this is what they do. They go into underserved communities and host spay and neuter clinics, usually over a 3-day period. Some of their clinics in the lower 48 boast about 1,000 animals. They do it at no cost to the residents. So we will be looking at some grants to be able to help and fund them coming up. They would bring approximately 50 veterinary professionals with them to help do those spays and neuters, and we'd be looking at potentially doing it up by Talkeetna, Trapper Creek area to make sure that we're going to be accessible for people that don't have access to veterinary care. So we're in the works for that. We've reached out to our local veterinary community. We've received nothing but positive responses and excitement to participate in that with us. So that's a big hope for this coming year. We would like to edge even closer to that 90%. 84 is really good. 90% is better. So we'd really like to continue working with our fosters and our rescues to strengthen those relationships to help nudge us closer to that 90% life relief rate. And then, of course, area-wide. So we've been working with the cities, planning that transition to move forward, identifying the areas or the things that are going to need some extra tender loving care as it moves over some of their hot spots with unaltered animals, aggressive animals, and those types of things so that we are prepared. Oh, and I'm done.
Could I ask one more
questions? Assemblyperson McKee, go ahead.
I think I asked this before, but I either didn't get I'm sure I got an answer. What about horses? Because I have been involved in some really horrific horse rescue operations over the years. And do you have a facility for holding the animals, or?
So through the mayor to Assemblymember McKee, we have a barn area at the shelter with 3 available stables. They have an indoor and an outdoor facility. We've got some portable kind of pipe corrals that we can use as well. We do also work with local kind of horse rescue that helps us with those things.
Is that a frequently occurring problem, or are you?
No, it's not frequently occurring. I think I tried to get my chief to bring in a horse here recently, but he found the owner and took it back. So,
Assemblyperson Sumner.
Oh, I mean, my question was somewhat related. Like, I mean, what do you guys do for exotic animals, or where do you draw the line? I mean, are there like ocelots and like things like that, or?
Through the mayor to Assemblymember Sumner, I'm sure that my chief back there is probably chomping at the bit because he's dealt with alligators, he's dealt with snakes, he's dealt with all kinds of things. We had a run on geese here recently that he picked up through the, in the middle of the road or the highway. So we pull in quite a bit of animals. It's kind of a running joke between the borough manager and myself. We have got 2 turtles. But we did just here recently partner with a rescue in Texas. So they will be taking our turtles because they've been living at the shelter for probably about 6 months. And I want them out.
Deputy Mayor. And then Stephanie, go ahead.
Do you have any pigs or cows for adoption?
Through the mayor to Assemblymember Bernier, not at this time, and I'm sure if they came in, I'd probably be the first one on that list to take them home. I want a Highland cow.
Assemblyperson Nowers.
All that reminded me of years ago, I'm sure the mayor remembers, there was an alligator on the loose from Palmer High that was made quite the splash out here, and it was never found, and there's quite a backstory, but it's not my story to tell. I just wanted to say thank you for all your work at the shelter. That is just one of the most heart-wrenching jobs, and I volunteered there before, and I'll never go into the dog area. I've said this before, I can handle the cats, but I don't want to end up with 78 dogs like some other people have. So thank you for the work you do there. And when I'm off of the assembly and have less duties, I'll be one of your volunteers over there.
We look forward to it.
Further questions or comments? Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Port? Yeah. Looks like we've lost an assembly person someplace. We need to wait until assembly fully assembles again.
All right. Should I get started, Mayor?
Well, the assembly is supposed to stay seated
Okay.
for the official minutes. And when they're,
My rules, not theirs.
please return to your seat so we can continue with the meeting. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Mayor, members of the Assembly. David Griffin, Port Director for Port McKenzie. And yeah, we're here to talk about budgets. Just to kind of give a quick rundown about the port. Port McKenzie does a lot of different things. We do operations, administration, business development, land management, asset management of the structures out there, wide variety of agency coordination amongst state, federal officials, and we also participate in different planning efforts and then sort of regional projects, specifically the Port McKenzie Rail Extension. And then there's also political angles, both regional, state, as well as national, because the port has gained a lot of interest over the last few years, specifically when it comes to resources and critical minerals and things like that. And I'm happy to talk about those things in more detail if you would like. So budget-wise, Port McKenzie operates as an enterprise fund. So I just want to be clear on that. And you'll see our numbers this year have increased, but one of the reasons those have increased is our capital requests are part of that. So about $1 million, 2 different projects, $500,000 each, one for grant match and the other for equipment at the port. It's one of the things that has been holding us back is lack of equipment for cargo handling, maintenance. We were successful in 2023 with the U.S. Marine Highway Program and a rough terrain crane. We finally received that December 31st of this year. So we've got a beautiful crane out on site, and it's going to get use. Ironically, we've already gotten calls from contractors, nothing to do with the port. Just said, hey, we heard you guys have a crane. We'd like to rent it. So it's like, we appreciate the sentiments, but it will be used. Most likely the first time it would be used is when we're removing our conveyor and shiploading facility out there on the trestle, which is one of the projects that'll be occurring this summer. We have three staff right now, full-time. We've got Corrine Lindfors and Greg Snell. Corrine does a lot of our port administration, and Greg is our port maintenance specialist. Greg is actually at the port. That's his duty station. So we've always got coverage out there Monday through Friday. And Greg will also alternate his schedule come summertime so that we've got coverage 7 days a week. So yeah, what else? There's just a lot of different things going on. Grants are a big part of what we do. We submit applications for grants. We're awarded grants. We have to go through and do a variety of different grant reporting. Within the last 5 years in particular, I don't have it on one of them on here. That's the EDA grant for the pile sleeves, but we've been very successful over the last 5 years. Most recently, I just mentioned the crane. We won that in 2023. That's funded through the U.S. Department of Transportation Maritime Administration, specifically the U.S. Marine Highway Program. We also won the BUILD grant, which is also administered through U.S. DOT MARAD. The BUILD grant provides us with construction funds for the barge haul-out facility. And then we won a port security grant through FEMA. And then we recently won a couple $100,000 to do an update to the Port McKenzie master plan. That plan is it's 10 years old. Well, it was adopted in 2016 by the Assembly, but it took a couple of years to get that plan in place. It was really geared more towards LNG export. So what we're looking at doing is coming up with a update to that plan that's more focused on what it is that we do currently, and then with a 3, 5, and 10-year outlook, including potential for the bulk fuel storage facility and the mineral processing facility that is currently, the site development is currently underway by Alaska Range Resources. And similarly, for the bulk fuel storage, that company is out there doing geotech this week. So things are happening on the ground. It's very exciting. But as things start to take off, we need to make sure that we have a robust plan in place to help guide the future development of the port so that we do it with as few mistakes as possible. And then also we have a few applications in, another grant application with the U.S. Marine Highway Program for some additional cargo handling equipment. And then our barge dock, come 2030, will reach 30 years old. And so we need to start thinking about planning for the reconstruction of that. Specifically of concern to us is Cell 1. And so we put in a grant application for that. And then we also put in another application through the BUILD program for planning of reconstruction of the entire barge dock. We had a pretty straightforward 2026 or FY 2026. Summer of 25, the highlight was the Arctic Edge military training exercise. We had 180, actually more than that, probably closer to 220 military personnel out at the port. 180 soldiers actually stayed and camped out there from Virginia as part of a transportation battalion. And but we had Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard on site, and they were running barges back and forth to Anchorage carrying cargo, simulating a potential natural hazard to move cargo back and forth to see if it was how efficient they could do it and what the tides were like, etc. It was very successful. We also, completed the design and engineering of the barge haul-out ramp. We got our crane, and then we've also just been really pushing the business development angle, getting out, marketing, doing a lot of outreach in the business community here in the state, doing lots of tours, site visits, and I think we're starting to see the fruits of that labor. And then looking forward to 2027, we're hoping to get the bid packet out on the street for the barge ramp this summer. We're in the last throes of the NEPA process, and so once that's completed, we will get that out. And then we're also in need of developing some laydown and staging areas, because as more cargo shows up on the dock, we need to make sure that there's adequate space for good circulation and movement of that cargo. And so what happens oftentimes is operators will bring things out and it may just kind of sit there until they're ready. And that's worked and it's still working, but we need to develop some pads either along the access road or up in the uplands so that some of these operators can bring their cargo out and stage it before weight restrictions go into effect. Because what happens is they like to bring stuff out in let's say April, even late March, and then the barges show up in May. So their cargo kind of just loiters there. So we need to develop some new areas for that, as well as the potential for the use of the port for the AKLNG project, which is looking pretty optimistic. So we'll see where that goes. But, along those lines, we have had some of the engineers from that project come out, just logistical folks come out to take a look at the port and just assess our capabilities and sort of the options for bringing in pipe and other project cargo for that project. But yeah, that's about all I have. I wanted to leave some time for questions and kind of go from there.
Assembly person hours.
Thanks, Dave. Really appreciate all the work that you've done out there to generate business for us. The barge dock replacement that you're talking about, are you talking about the metal structure that you walk out on, or are you talking about the actual like cells that hold in the kind of dirt area there?
Through the mayor, Ms. Nowers, yes, it's the sheet pile bulkhead. That went in 2000, and so it's it's holding up. We have done an assessment recently, and it is holding up. But it's just one of those projects that we need to start planning for it now so that we can start raising funds, because this is probably about a $35 to $40 million project.
That was my next question. I remember when it went in, but I was wondering what that ballpark figure might be for replacing it.
And I think through the planning effort that's coming up, we may actually look at some alternatives, because what I and others have started to realize is, I mean, if we really step back and around between 2000 and 2004, we had a 500-foot long barge dock. We did not have our deep draft dock. So then that came in 2004, and we ate up about 125 feet of our barge dock. So usable space of that bulkhead is roughly 375 feet. We are taking out the conveyor and the ship loading structure. The big A-frame out there has not been used since 2010. It is in the way. We've heard it's in the way. And so we're not using it. We're not maintaining it. And the technology, quite frankly, we have newer technology for loading bulk materials, i.e. radial stackers and things like that we could roll out onto the trestle, onto that cargo platform. And this is its third home. It was originally in Portland, then it went to Homer, then it came here. So we're going to take that out. That's going to free up space out on the cargo platform. And then, but thinking ahead, planning wise, we may want to sacrifice our existing barge dock, put in a new trestle, expand our cargo platform, and actually look at moving the whole barge dock further south. So expanding our existing gravel pad, let's just double it from 15 to 30 acres, put in a new barge dock bulkhead, possibly with a dry berth and travel lift so you can actually pull vessels up out of the water. Barges like being on the south side of the dock because they come in at high tide, and then they can go back to sail when the tide's going out and drift back out into the channel. So ConocoPhillips was out a couple of weeks ago, and they're evaluating the port for use to put together a sea lift module that they could roll onto a barge. And then they would take it around to the North Slope. The North Slope water is very shallow, and they basically have a very short window to bring things in. And, it was interesting. I don't know where this will go. I mean, they're just feeling things out like a lot of companies do, sort of kicking the tires. But, they asked like if we would have any problem with them building infrastructure at the port. And so I was like, I mean, if we could figure out a way that those guys could come in and actually develop some infrastructure to fit their needs, I think that could be a win-win. So, we'll see where that goes, but they're looking at 2028, 2029, 2030, 2031 for modules. And we'd love to be able to, provide that opportunity. It's probably not large, revenue generating. Barging, it doesn't really generate a ton of revenue. It's the big ships. So each time we have a big ship in at that port right there, you're looking at 100 to 125,000 minimum. So if we can figure out how to get the big ships in, that's where the big money's at. And then of course, upland land for leasing, because oftentimes shipping is seasonal, especially in our neck of the woods, barging in particular. So if we can figure out how to get the port to make money year round through our land leasing up top, possible fuel terminal where we're bringing in, I mean, if we start bringing in 200 million gallons of fuel annually, we're looking at 6 to 7 fuel tankers coming into the port each year. So that would get us, revenue-wise, would get us, we'd be looking pretty good. I don't want to get too ahead of myself revenue-wise, but right now, the number that I use is we're missing about $500,000 for us to be breaking even. And so it's a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, that's 5 boats. So how can we get 5 boats here? That's sort of our metric that we've been using. So.
Okay, we've had another request for a break, so can we do 5 minutes? 2 minutes? Okay, all right.
Is Dave still going to be here? Are you still going to be here?
We're gonna take a break. Assembly person advance for 2 minutes. We'll come back for questions.
Okay.
Sir. Thank you.
Yeah, 2 minutes. You can do it.
Okay, so that's what I just didn't know if it was.
Or maybe he is. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, that very well could be. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
just so you know, don't. At 3:15, Estelle's coming to take my place because I've got to go pick up Hayden at school.
Okay.
Speaking of buses.
Oh, yeah, right.
Cheyenne has promised all she needs is 2 minutes, Madam Mayor.
Oh, okay. The most important part of the whole presentation today, right? If we don't have that section, we don't have nothing, do we?
She's just talking about finance. She doesn't have the budget.
Okay, if I can have the assembly come back to the chambers, please.
Like herding cats now, Mayor.
Yeah.
You're back on anytime you want, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
But we
Can
don't
I-
have a quorum here yet.
Yeah, we don't have a quorum. Come.
We do have a quorum now, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Okay, so we'll
We
come,
and-
yeah, and there's Max, okay. So, we're gonna wrap up here with the ports. Anybody have any questions? No, I guess not, sir. Thank you very
have
much.
it.
And you do have some, public, times when you're gonna have visitation at the port again? You'll keep us posted on those. I think you did set one up, right?
Yes, Mayor.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you. This is all of our port. I mean, Port McKenzie's the borough, supports the borough's asset. And it is truly a gateway to the world. And, one of the things that the port has been sort of working towards is spending a little bit more time in the interior and just educating the elected officials in the interior and the representatives there, as well as industry, like we are your port as well. And I think we're gaining some traction on that. And so I'm hopeful and optimistic about the future, and we just got to get that railroad finished. And I think all sorts of opportunities are going to open up. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor, do you have a question? Sorry. Go ahead.
Have you had a chance to reach out to Jim Jansen?
I've not had any conversations with him. We did play phone tag.
Okay. Let's work on that and see if we can't get him out there.
Okay. All right. All right, thank
I
you.
need to put my mic on. So let the record show that Assemblyperson Sumner has another obligation, so he's going to leave. Anybody else have any problems with going past 3 o'clock? Okay, go ahead. Diane?
Okay. Through the mayor to the assembly, Cheyenne Heindel, finance director. I'm going to keep it short. If you look at our departmental slide, it looks like we had an increase from 2025 to 2027. But truly in 2025, we were very short-staffed in our assessments department, and we were also without a borough assessor at that time. So those actual numbers do not reflect wages for several employees. The other thing just to be aware of, 2026, we did privatize and outsource the ambulance billing function. That repurposed 2 employees and eliminated 1 employee from our department, but we also added an employee that year to help the appraisers. This year, we have given up an employee in accounting. We're the only division or department that gave up an employee that was in an existing position. And we chose to do that because it was the right thing to do, because the position is currently filling is not a position we need at this time. So that's where that's at. She has the ability to find a position within the borough. As for our accomplishments, we sold bonds, closed on them last week. We saved approximately 3.6%. It doesn't sound like a lot, but they were bonds that were getting ready to be paid in full in the next 4 years. They still will be paid in full in the next 4 years, but instead of owing a little over $13 million on those bonds, we now have negotiated them down to about $12 million. We will, continue to look for savings and refundings. I will tell you, this is probably the easiest bond sale we've done since I've been here. So that's great. Unless you guys put something on the ballot in the future, we don't have any bond sales that we're looking for in the next year or so. And our goals are, of course, to continue our bond rating. We were really lucky that the rating agencies affirmed our AA+ rating both ways. They, of course, do a cursory review every year looking at our finances to reaffirm that, but we actually went out and did a formal presentation this year for the bond sales. We're, of course, going to strive to continue getting the government finance awards for budget and the audit and the citizens annual report. And hopefully our insurance premiums will come in about 10% increase. That's what we budgeted last year. That's what we budgeted this year. Prior to that, in 2025, we were told a 31% increase in premiums. It actually worked out to about a 10 to 11% increase. So overall, that's finance. I'm not going to bore you with the numbers. You guys have had a long day, a lot of information thrown at you, so I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Okay, I guess not. Thank you.
You were quick, Cheyenne.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, okay, sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So what next? Just to kind of wrap this thing up in terms of where do we go from here? So I mentioned already that we are in the process of producing the budget books. That'll give you a hard copy report for the assembly. So you can go analog, you can go digital once it's introduced. The ordinance, the budget ordinance is introduced April 21st. That will put it out there publicly. It'll be available for the public to review. We start our public hearings in Willow, Menard here in Chambers, and then go into deliberations, timelines on the slide. So that's the public process. So invite folks to come out if they want to talk about it, have questions. I will say this one final statement, and then I'll be quiet, is the budget was produced in a way, and you heard different terms from different directors around cost containment and giving clear direction and different things. The idea behind all this, I just kind of want to wrap it up with this, is the idea for this budget is not to overcommit ourselves now so that we don't have the ability to make decisions for services into the future. And I'll be honest, like an example could be police services. Like someday I think we want to talk about that. And if we end up hanging out at the top end of the area-wide mill rate, and I say top end, I'm talking up like near the tax cap, it's really going to limit our options to have those types of conversations in the future if we just commit ourselves now. So for me, this is about preserving options for the future. And so that's why we're pushing on spending, is because I think there needs to be some additional conversations. And you heard us talking about potential changes to the emergency services model. We talked about capital planning for roads and trying to figure out what those target budgets are going to be. Like, we're trying to seed this conversation in a way that shows that it really is leaning forward and looking to the future and making sure that we don't make decisions today that limit our options, not literally tomorrow, but into the future. So just so you kind of understand what was in mind when we were having these conversations. So that's all. I appreciate the time. And I welcome your feedback. So as assembly members, if you want to let me know, like, hey, I like this, I don't like that, this is for you and for the community. So if there are things that you want to see us do differently, I'm completely open to that feedback. I would love to get this thing dialed in to give you what you're looking for. We can sit down individually and go through the budgets once you have them and had a chance to review if you have questions. And if you want to reach out to the department directors and you have specific questions, that I think that would be okay too, and welcome that. So with that said, appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to the manager? Okay, well, let's do parting comments. Then, Mr. Attorney, parting comments. Assemblyperson McKee, parting comments. Deputy Mayor, parting comments.
I got a couple there. You know, I was up until about midnight talking with my son and wife about schools and the mindset of the school board and the district as far as, well, they honor choice, but they're just going to give people their choice. And I really strongly feel, you know, we've got basically, I think it was 6,000 students that are going to school outside of our district in different home schools. That was something like $50 million or something that we're losing from our school district. And for them not to try to capture those, but think of the big picture. You know, Galena is a little village of 565 people, and they got 7,800 to 8,200 students. Okay, they're spread all over the state. There's a handful of students that actually live in Galena. Can you imagine being a student there? What are we going to do today? Oh, I think we'll go on a field trip. We're going to see the space shuttle because we got enough money in our budget to be able to afford stuff like that. But in the valley, why don't we have a homeschool set up besides Matsu Central? Like, how about a homeschool called Ideal? And you could cater to the rest of the state, not just our borough. We should be bringing in students from Juneau, Kenai, up north, western Alaska, and there'd be a lot more revenue flowing into this district. So, other than that, I want to say thank you everyone for coming out, and thank you, Lord Jesus, for blessing our valley. Thank you for making this a great country. Thank you for our people. Give us wisdom, Lord. We ask and pray for vision. We thank you for your mercy and your grace, Lord. In Jesus' name, we ask and pray. Amen.
Assemblyperson Nowers, parting comments?
Yeah, I did have comments, but I 100% agree with you. And I love Ideal. I love that as a name. With the, can we do something here to reattract those students back? So the parents are choosing us and the dollars are flowing to here, because that would allow us to, afford these things and still honor parents being able to do the best by their kids. And I do know the school district, to be fair, has been starting to look at that. And last year, I think it was last year, they started the Matsu hybrid program, which was targeted that, but there's more I think that could be done. And I'd like to hear from the school district how they could tackle that. Cause it's like you're a business and you're like, there's 6,000 customers over there, like that's a potential revenue stream. Cause you hear them say, we can't make revenue. It's sort of a way you could make revenue. So, I know we're going to be talking about the budget. We're going to talk about school funding. I feel like this bomb has been dropped on the community at the last minute, and they have not even had time, like all the creative things we talked about today, the ways we're trying to tackle problems. If we can give them some breathing room to have a year, that's kind of, I've said this multiple times, kind of where I'm sitting, to come up with those solutions so they can preserve the things they want, or decide, okay, this is, we've had time to look at this. This is the decision we're making, instead of just the bomb drops and you got to make a decision overnight. So I think there's a real opportunity to make this district work. And we're in a different position because we're a growing community. Anchorage and Fairbanks are not. And that's where I see room for maybe different decisions than some of the other communities are making. I really want to acknowledge all the work that's gone into the budget, to thank the manager and the department heads for really turning the screws. I know that is not a comfortable thing to do. I really appreciate the efforts that have been made to be creative and make the borough a leader in how we're running our government, whether that's the spay and neuter clinic or the cleanup program, or having the RSA, do capital budgets, to think about how we can do things in a way that is just smart for the long term, fiscally responsible. And so just thank you. I know there's a lot of work that went into today. And then it sounds like my questions at the last assembly meeting generated $100 for the borough. So I'm thinking maybe I just keep asking, maybe $200. So maybe I'll just, keep asking questions. So thank you. Hope everybody gets out in the sunshine.
Mr. Manager, any further? Okay. Madam Clerk, Assemblyperson Bowles, parting comments, sir?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to thank borough staff, from the manager, clerk's office, all the different departments. Outstanding work. Thank you very much. This is the best borough in the state. It's the best ran borough. It's the most efficient borough. We have the best school district, school board. It's hands down. Everybody else in Alaska wants to be like us. They don't vote like it, but they want it. That's why we're growing. So I'll leave it at that. As far as the school board, great recommendations, but I just want to remind my peers that we are the assembly and not the school board. So might want to stay in our lane on that. And so what I'll say as far as that, though, is the budget is our lane. At the beginning of the meeting, it was discussed that there's going to be an increase of 3% for benefits for borough staff. For school district staff, there's an 8% increase in benefits. So looking at the budget from last year, that was $69 million total in benefits for school district staff. 5% of that is $3.5 million. That's what they're asking for. So if we increase their benefits to 8% at 5% increase, the 3.5% that they're asking for, if they negotiate the next contract with the union at a 3% increase for benefits, which is what the borough staff are getting, then that $3.5 million is now moot. So if anybody out there is listening, with that, it's always just an honor to be up here. It's a privilege to be up here. It's a privilege to serve, and just thank you, District 1, for putting me in this seat. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, go ahead.
Through the mayor, I want to clarify one thing. When the 3 and 8% conversation was happening earlier, that was just healthcare, not benefits as a whole, right? Because that's PERS, retirement. I just wanted to make sure that's clear. That was just the healthcare component. So if you're looking at a benefits line item, like in the district, it might be more inclusive than just healthcare. Just so you know.
Assemblyperson Anna, parting comments, sir?
Thank you so much, Manager. Thank you to all the department managers and leaders and directors. You guys did a good job, especially the ones that came and asked for less than last year. Thank you so much. And then what else? Today, when Mr. Brina, I wasn't planning to talk about, but you touched on the subject. As we woke up, one of the ads popped up as a Raven homeschool, and they actually promote as a homeschool. And then it's very simple. It says, "You lead, we support," up to $2,700, like all the incentives right out there. And it's really shows like specifically to homeschoolers, right? So I had to kind of dig in a little closer to see that it's actually Yukon, part of the Yukon school district too. So I guess that formula seems to be working, and maybe some people don't really realize that they're actually, by going to homeschool, they're sending the kids to just another school district. And I do think there's room for marketing for ours, especially how well we're performing. And I think we could probably take advantage of that. It won't be as easy maybe to get the students back, the ones that start saving money and things like that. But there's always so many kids that are enrolling in schools each year. So marketing was probably going to be important, especially in this digital age. So I hope our school board and the administration really takes that serious, maybe do more open houses, because as I walk to schools, I love the principals, teachers. I see their heart in it, and I really know that the kids are in the good hands because they think like us, they live amongst us. So I do think we can improve on the marketing part, because as population is growing but enrollment is going down, that means there is room to improve. That's all I have.
Yeah. I just want to say good job, everybody. And it isn't every day we get to see all of you together. We see you at various times, but thank you for your day. And we will adjourn at 3:17. Thank you.